All right. We're 2 minutes away.
It's funny, Chris Ferry's telling me here that they'll probably put their tower purchase off another year because they need to place car one and car two, both are falling apart.
Allison?
Speed bumps slow cars down.
All right. Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Corporate Services Committee for the Township of Severn. I'm Phil Brennan, your chair for today. Welcome to everyone. Let's start off here. Does anyone have a pecuniary interest they wish to disclose? All right. We have no delegations, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull an item from that agenda? Yes.
Yes, I've decided I'd like to pull 2.3, please. Tillsonburg, strong mayor powers.
Thank you. And I would like to pull D 2.2. Basically, I suspect they can be both dealt with around the same time in the agenda under new business now. All right, can we have a motion then for approval of the regular agenda?
Motion reads that the motion reads that the agenda be adopted, including consent items with the exception of item D 2.2 and D 2.3.
Thank you. Mover? Member Taylor, seconded by Member McIntyre. All in favor? Motion carried. Reports from officials. We have two. F 1.1, the 2026 municipal election voting method, and ask the Madam Clerk to speak to that.
Thank you. So this report comes forward every term to set the voting method for the next election, which I can't even believe is coming up next year already. I feel like I just finished the last election. So staff are proposing the same method that was essentially used in 2022. So a mix of online voting and in-person ballots using tabulators. Also at the polls, just like in 2022, we had tablets on hand. So if people still wanted to vote online, but they didn't have a computer at home or access to the internet, they wanted to try it, they still had the ability to do that in person if they wanted to. And we did have people use that. Last time they just wanted to give it a go and see how it worked, and they took a tablet behind a pole and it worked just fine. So I mean, the report goes into great detail about the varying different voting options out there, from pure internet and telephone, which is what a lot of municipalities do north of us. So all of the district of Muskoka uses pure just internet telephone voting, and they do not offer in-person voting at all. They do have a help center at their municipal offices where people, if they need assistance, can come and get that assistance, but it's still online voting. There was no paper at all. They've done that for ages now. And there are some within the county that have operated that way as well. Most these days operate with a bit of a hybrid system, which is what I'm proposing we use, which is similar to 2022. Again, where we have online voting, no telephone, and paper ballot option at polls. Just for council's information, again, it's way far out at this point. I haven't figured out all the details. But I am looking to be holding more advanced polls this time. So they will still rotate between the 3 locations. So between Coldwater, Washego, and the office. So because those are our municipal facilities. So, but they will be held in rotating variety this time, instead of, as has always been the tradition here in Severn, where they're only ever held here at the township office. So the prior clerk, for as far back as I can find her records, only held them here at the office. Now, election records are only kept for so long. So maybe many, many years ago, there was some change to that, but Yeah. But that's the proposal is that we proceed basically like 2022 with respect to actual voting method. So from here, what would happen is if council's on board with it, then the appropriate bylaws would come forward to the May council meeting to authorize the use of alternative voting. And then I would just proceed with developing the 2026 municipal election budget and go from there.
Yes, questions from members of the committee? Yes.
Yeah, through the chair to Allison, I like this hybrid method. Everybody I talked to liked it. And the best part for me was too, is that our seasonal residents or someone's away, they can all just still vote. And as you put in here about the people who commute and it's late, it just makes it more convenient. And I think it makes it, as you said, more transparent and accessible for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Minnings.
Thank you. Through the chair, just a question. Do you have the dates or when will the dates come out as far as opening up the call for candidates, et cetera? I'm getting a lot of inquiries from people who are hopefully considering some kind of taking a shot at running in the next election. And I don't have a sense of time and I actually don't recall what it was. Thank you.
Thank you. So I can get you those dates. I don't have them with me today, but it is, I believe if it's the same as last time, it opens up on May 1st and will close mid-August for nominations. And then the election is obviously in October. So, but I put a big but on that because the province is always talking about doing updates to the act and they tend to happen pretty last minute. So they normally always get announced the year before the election at AMO or Good Roads. So we'll see if something get announced. That's when the shorter or the longer term was announced, when it went from 3 years to 4 years, was at Good Roads. It wasn't at a AMO or a clerk's conference. It was at Good Roads. And then the change to the shorter nomination period, because it used to be January 1st. Yeah, nominations used to, before 2022, nominations opened on January 1st and went all the way through to August. So the nomination period was enormous. And I know AMCTO and a couple other organizations are actively lobbying to even shorten that further. So there's a push on to close that nomination window a little tighter. So that's why I say I have the dates, but hold on to that. We will be doing candidate information sessions in the spring. Next spring, about the reality of and the time commitment of working with council and being on council and dealing with residents and all that type of stuff. And as there was in 2022, there will be a nomination package that people will be able to pick up in the new year. But before we can get there, I just need to know what we're doing.
Thank you. And then my subsequent question would be, once the dates are sort of set by the province, do all municipalities use, for example, possibly May 1st to mid-August, or is there flexibility within each township? Just curious.
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, the dates are provincial. So nominations opening, close of nominations, when the voters list is available for candidates, all of that is set by legislation. So there's no wiggle room for clerks on that at all.
Member Taylor.
Thanks. I like what we did last time. That's good. My only question or request is there any chance the Matchdash Hall could be used on election day for a polling station? There's a lot of people that would have voted out there, but they have to drive to Coldwater or here. And just for interest, the provincial election had a polling station there, and also the federal election is going to be there on Monday. So any chance of opening up just on election day? People have voted on election day for many, many years in the past.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So thank you very much for that question. I believe we spoke about it in 2022 before it's again. Provincial and federal elections run under their own legislation and their own entities. Municipal elections are run under the Municipal Elections Act, and I'm required by legislation to have a fully accessible poll. And fully accessible, unfortunately, at this point in time, the Matchdash Hall by an accessibility audit would not be deemed to be compliant with that. And I can appreciate that the federal and the provincial elections are using it. I obviously do no different than they're using Lake St. George. However, those locations are not accessible by the terms of the current legislation. So they are not available polls for me. I can't, the days where you can take a ballot out to a car for the municipal election, unfortunately, is not something I can do anymore. It's the province can set their own rules for themselves and the feds can set their own rules for themselves, but I have to abide by their legislation. So unfortunately, unless there's, and to be honest, given the 70% turnout online and 30% turnout only in person, I don't know if I could justify the staffing and the cost of running that many polls, especially if we're going to run additional advanced polls that will rotate around. So before, if someone wanted to vote in an advanced poll, they all had to come to the municipal office. From whether it was Washego or whether it was Port Severn or Severn Falls, the only option here was here at the office. And so I'm hoping that by rotating polls this time, that does encourage more folks to come out and vote ahead.
Just to follow up, not happy with that response, but I'm wondering what will it take to make it acceptable or legal to have a vote there? Because it's depriving a lot of local people there that aren't online and they would vote there.
I believe the township, through you, Mr. Chair, I believe the township had accessibility audits done in 2021. And there's a list of renovations that need to be done to Matchedash Hall to make it fully accessible. So, and provided the legislation and codes haven't changed since that audit was done in 2021. So the list of works to be done is there. It's just not a functional, feasible poll. And while I completely appreciate your perspective, Ward 1 actually has an enormous seasonal population that would be voting, I would expect, online. So that's where the trade-off is when you offer alternate voting, is that most municipalities actually do shrink down the number of polls available to more centralized locations. So because you're providing alternative methods to vote. So it's the idea is that the more options you give, there's a balance to that. So.
Perhaps put this topic through as another discussion down the road, because even in that, back in 2021, they're talking about an elevator to the basement and stuff like that, whereas it's not acceptable. But maybe at a future corporate meeting brings forward that report from 2021 and let's revisit it.
Yep. Yes. Member Cox.
Yep, through the chair. Well, but Mark, I think it's going to be helpful that it's going to be one in Coldwater. And I think we really need to advertise it because that's not very far for them to go. When you think about it, they at least have Coldwater. And now we can say at least, Sparrow Lake area and Peninsula Point, they've at least got Washego, whereas before everybody had to come here. So that sort of tightens it up a bit. And as long as it's well advertised and we push it out there of the accessibility and to go there, I think that's about the best we can do at this point. Thanks.
Member Burkett.
Thank you. Through the chair. The Rogers that's going to do our internet. Do you think it'll be done by election time 2026? Like they're going to start this year, just so that the people that aren't online out in Matchedash now may have an opportunity to vote online.
Through the chair, I have no idea. I email them every 3 months to ask them if they're still on track. And my last email was probably 2 months ago and it's gone unanswered. So I don't know. As far as I know, I'd have to ask Derek, but I'm pretty sure they haven't pulled any permits yet. So who knows?
Thank you. Well, that is something that they did promise us, and they did, but I can't see it taking another 2 years. On full, but I guess we'll wait. Hopefully we get some news this year, which may allow. Well, that's true too.
Just okay before we go to a motion though. So Deputy Clerk, Madam Clerk, rather, is it acceptable to you then to bring us back a refresher with regard to the facility? We're not looking for a new report. Just I'm not familiar with it. I'm not up to date. Yes, Madam Clerk.
Maybe I'll share it. If it's acceptable, I'll share it offline because there was a priority set by council and unfortunately Matchdas Hall was way down on the list. We need to make this building accessible. We need to make the arena accessible. We need to make Shagos accessible. So there were lots of things that needed and we haven't done any of them yet. So but yeah, yes, we've done some small progress, but yeah, we had a meeting of the Economic Development Committee the other day and Mark Bisson has a bad foot and he couldn't get up on the dais, which reminded me of why we needed to do that. But yeah, I can reshare because it was quite some time ago and it did have some priorities.
That'd be great. Thank you. Oh, with that understood, could we please have a motion then?
Certainly, the motion reads that Administration Report 825-016 dated April 23rd, 2025 regarding selection of voting method for the 2026 municipal and school board election be received, and that council approves a hybrid voting system using paper ballot with tabulators and internet voting for the 2026 and 2026 municipal and school board election, and further that the required bylaws to authorize the use of optical scan tabulators and an alternative voting method be brought forward to put into force and effect the approved alternative voting method.
Mover? Oh, yes, Member Innings.
Thank you. Now that I've heard the motion, I just have a follow-up question. Is the motion, as you've read it, just for the type of ballots being used and not the location? So regarding Matchdash Hall and accessibility, which I have no knowledge of the 2021 report. So I just want clarification on what we're actually voting on today. Thanks.
Thank you. So I should make it explicitly clear that council has no direction in how the municipal election operates. This is the extent of it. So after this, you will not receive a single other report back with respect to the operations of the municipal election. For those that are new to council, this term, you would have no knowledge of that. But the Municipal Act is solely under my authority as the returning officer for the election. My hat actually switches from clerk to returning officer under the Municipal Elections Act. So council will have no further council dice input on the running of the election. So with respect to your question, Member Minnings, today's motion is just about the voting method. So, and from there, even though in some municipalities, it's not standard practice to bring this back for every municipal election. Bigger cities have one bylaw passed when a new motion or a new method's adopted and they don't put an expiry on it. So it goes in perpetuity until council says they want to do something different or the clerk at the time comes forward with recommendation. Just because of the nature of wanting council to make sure that this is the voting method that works for our constituents. I do bring it forward every term. So this will come forward again before the 2030 election as well. But yes, today's is purely about the voting method itself.
Thank you. So still looking for a mover for the motion. Moved by Member Minnings, seconded by Member Cox. All in favor? The motion passes. You the boss. All right, moving forward to reports from officials. And F 1.2, I'm going to pass the chair to my vice chair here, Member Taylor, and bring up an area of murk and fat. Is that? Hold on there. I know my new glasses aren't working as good as well as I thought. Please proceed.
Hey, thank you. So as we're all aware, very recently, the province has announced an extension to what is generally known as strong mayor powers. So this came about effective for some municipalities since as far back as 2022 at this point. So the legislation itself is not new. The number of municipalities it's impacting and changing is what's the change this time. Back in 2022, when it first came out, it was targeted towards, I'm going to say, the general GTA area. Those that were given the opportunity to get the strong mayor powers had to sign a housing pledge, like a housing target commitment pledge. Since that time, the province has moved away from requiring municipalities to sign that pledge, especially with the latest round. There's no requirement to sign that pledge. It's just an additional 169 municipalities Pretty much any municipality with more than six or more on their councils are getting the powers. So the powers themselves are broken up into what I would deem to be three main categories. So administrative, legislative, and financial. So out of the three, the mayor may choose to delegate the administrative ones. There is no opportunity for the mayor to delegate the legislative powers or the financial powers. That just does not exist in the legislation. That said, so the administrative powers cover providing direction to municipal employees. Should the mayor do this, then it has to be in writing. And that delegation or that direction is posted online. Appointing or terminating the CIO. This has obviously received a lot of traction recently locally with respect to what's happened with our neighbor. Determining the organizational structure. So the mayor would have the authority to restructure departments. So, you know, if we didn't like building over here, we didn't want bylaw over here, we didn't want this over here, they could move it around if they so choose. Prescribing local boards and committees. I'm not going to go into every single one, the details in the staff report, but there's a lot of flexibility and gray area in all of this. It hasn't been tested in the courts, not once since 2022, to my knowledge. I'm expecting that with the growing number of municipalities that are receiving this authority, that is going to start happening. And I do believe Mr. Mascaron, who is with Airden Burles and one of the more preeminent lawyers speaking on this matter, is on the same path as those general thoughts. Legislative power. So these are different. They can only be used with respect to provincial priorities. The provincial priorities are not arbitrary. They're set out in an OREG. So, and bear in mind, OREGs can be updated at the discretion of the minister, but it still has to be done in an OREG, and they're published and they're posted. So right now, OREG 580-20 is set out under the Municipal Act, and it says the provincial priorities are to build 1.5 million new residential units by December 31st, 2031. And the second big one is constructing and maintaining infrastructure support housing, including transit, roads, utilities, and servicing. And there's no other parameters around that. So how that's interpreted is where some of the broadness can come in. So two big ones. So there's three here. So if the mayor thinks that we need to be doing something under those provincial priorities, they can require council to consider a matter. So it has to be put on the agenda. You're given notice. It moves forward to a meeting. They can propose a bylaw to potentially advance a provincial priority, and it can pass with only a 1/3 of council vote. And if the mayor thinks council has passed a bylaw that is against a provincial priority, then the mayor can veto that bylaw. So I won't get into the nitty-gritty of veto and not veto, and I will give you a actual workflow as to how that would work, which I think would be useful in the future, for the rare occasion that this might actually come into play. On the financial powers, so the big one here is that the budget is now the mayor's. So the director of finance will be coming forward closer to budget with a more detailed report as to what the implications of that is. But the long and the short of it is, once the budget's presented, it's considered to be the mayor's budget. And if council wants to amend something, it is by motion. There is no, we want to make this change, we want to do that. Every single change is by motion. And it has to be with, I think it's a 2/3 majority of council to do that, because you're overriding the mayor's budget. At the end of it, it's the mayor's budget that's adopted and council only endorses it, which is an important change in language. Yeah, absolutely.
Question. I watched the Grey County with John
Mascaron?
Mascaron. Yeah. And because of the fact that he has been dealing with the other strong mayors since 2022 or 2023, he was saying with the budget, the mayor's budget, is that a lot of the mayors he has advised and spoken to is that they will say to staff, they will put their, what's the word I'm doing? Delegate. They will say, we we're going to do with council a little bit. We're going to do our budget the same way we did it last year. Staff will bring it forward and we will all reconsider the mayor's budget. So it doesn't, you can do that. It doesn't have to be that the mayor has to sit there and go through the whole thing. He can delegate that power back to the way it was before and have it come forward. According to him,
Yeah, and I'm gonna put one word of clarification. So John is using the word delegate to say it's more process oriented.
Yeah.
So it's not, so like when I talk about the administrative powers, the mayor can actually sign on May 1st if he so chose, an actual formal delegation of
Yes.
authority on those things.
okay,
Where Mr. Mascaron is going is many municipalities did not ask for this and not interested in this.
Right.
So when it comes to budget, they're trying to operate as normal as possible.
yes, okay,
So he's saying that while the budget is technically labeled the mayor's budget, it's still operating as usual and that type of stuff. In that atmosphere, though, there's still the legislation that
Oh,
has to be
of
balanced
course.
with it. So if council did want to make changes, it still has to be done by motion, but it absolutely can still be presented by staff and run by staff and that whole piece if the mayor so chooses.
So can you go back to that at the beginning, like let's say on May 5th, the mayor could delegate. Let's just say the mayor can delegate that the CAO still has authority over staff, that he delegates that this and this. Does he just delegate that? Does it come back to council? Or can he just do those statements and delegate everything back the way it was to stay the way it is? I'm just curious.
It's all very new through the chair. It's all very new to everyone. So we're giving our answers as we understand it because we got the notice the same day you got the notice and don't know. But in the legislation, it's very clear on what can be delegated and what can't. I think in Allison's report on page 2, it sets out what can't be delegated. What you're talking, I think what Allison was getting at on the financial powers is the mayor can say, I want the budget process to happen the way the budget process already happens. He can direct staff to do that, but at the end of the day, it's still his budget and any changes have to be done. His delegations do not go to council. We're watching it happen in Aurelia and the mayor gives the clerk direction. She posts it on the website and tells council about it and that meets the legislation. I will Deputy Mayor Cox mentioned the Grey County. So Grey County had John Mascaron come and talk about it. I will send that link out to all. Oh, you sent it out to all. Okay. You should definitely watch it. I'm 3/4 through it and their council, and it was at Grey County was all their lower tiers together. So there were a lot of people, but they had some really great questions. And similarly, he didn't always have great answers because is new to everybody and we're figuring it out as we come, but it was a good watch. Ignore the first 43 minutes that they took to decide whether it was open session or closed session. Yes, it had been scheduled and closed, but they decided that there was nothing in it that couldn't be open, and watching it I would agree, and it was a good watch for the rest of us, and we don't have to pay John Mascaron to come and do the same thing for us. So I would highly invite you to watch it.
So just supplemental then, back to the neighbors issue. When the mayor can delegate back to the CAO the authority to look after what the CAO already does. Clarity?
That is something that the mayor can delegate. It's administrative power. So administrative power, the mayor can delegate responsibility for the CAO back to council if he so chooses, and he can delegate the responsibility for staff back to the CAO. Similar to what the clerk had mentioned, it has to be in writing and we have to post it, and all those good things. I should point out, because Allison will be too modest, but it's a ton of extra work for the clerk's department that I'm not sure adds any value to anyone. However, we are required to do it. So, yes.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of paperwork and
Yes.
flying back and forth.
After
Okay.
every meeting, the clerk will have to publish on the behalf of the mayor that the mayor does not wish to veto any bylaws that happened on the agenda. Just silly paperwork things. Should maybe talk to the Minister of Red Tape about that. But anyways, that's my editorial.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So, just following through. So those are the main three pieces. There are a couple other outside miscellaneous ones that I didn't put in 3 categories. So, there's an immunity piece in the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Has been amended that so long as the mayor's actions are in good faith, that they're covered. They're deemed to be have no conflict under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Also an interesting one for someone who we just had an election chat. If the mayor's seat were to become vacant for any reason during the term, it is no longer an option to do an appointment. So if the mayor's seat were to become vacant during a council term, it is an automatic by-election. Yeah, so that, which is quite interesting. So even if like I had a deputy, and it only impacts the mayor's office. So, but case in point, my last municipality, I had a deputy mayor who was freshly elected, passed away between inaugural and the first meeting due to a heart attack. But because the election had just been held, the council looked at the election results and just appointed the second person. That would not be an option if that was the mayor's office. We would even immediately after municipal election be back into another by-election purely for that. And because it's the mayor's office, it's a full election. Right? So just some little piece in the back of the mind. But outside of that, staff will continue to monitor it. There's actually a link in the staff report to the province's Strong Mayor Powers Municipal Councillors Guide. Very good source of information. It's actually part of a broader counselor's guide, which is actually quite a good tool. I believe I mentioned it way back at orientation. But this section's been added obviously since then, since these mayor powers came into effect. It's very good. It's very laid out in straightforward terms. And lays out even the veto process with respect to bylaws and budget and everything. So I strongly encourage you to have a read of that. Mr. Mascaren's presentation is great for Grey County, but I always strongly recommend reading the guide that's put out by the ministry that actually did the legislation as well. So with that said, I mean, my report's purely about what the powers are. So.
Thank you. Member Taylor, and I have a question after that.
Yeah, through the chair to Allison or Lori, vetoing a bylaw. Does that mean the mayor could go back and see existing bylaws that he or she doesn't like and can change that? Or is there a time limit on that? Like it says bylaw that potentially interferes with a provincial priority. Maybe this mayor didn't like a bylaw from the past and don't like it. Can he or she bring that forward?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is one we don't have an answer on at this point in time, and I would need to get, and I probably would be seeking a legal opinion on that one because we don't have an answer on that one. So and over time, those are the details that will sort themselves out. I will note that there is additional training that I'm going to this Friday. The Municipal Finance Officers Association is doing training in another week and a half on the budget process itself. So this has come very quickly and unexpectedly. It was not on anyone's radar. So we're just trying to provide as much information as we can as we get it. But I expect the answer will be no. But short of a legal opinion, don't put that in writing.
Madam CEO.
Oftentimes when these new things get passed, a transition regulation is passed, which we haven't seen. So that may answer that question. And I'm with the clerk. I believe that the answer will probably be no. However, the mayor in his strong mayor powers could direct staff to bring something back. So even if it's a no, it's not really a no, if that makes sense.
Any powers that are exercised under the strong mayor powers section of the Municipal Act supersede the procedural bylaw. So if we have a piece in our bylaw about reconsideration can only happen X number of times in a term or can't happen, if the mayor were to give written direction, the item be brought back, it supersedes all of that. So just as a heads up, it's going to be, the other piece we should note is that these bylaw powers also apply to the Planning Act. So just a piece in there as well. So yeah, well, that's the provincial priorities, right? For housing and development. So It's not just bylaws enacted under the Municipal Act. I believe it's the Municipal Act, Planning Act, and I think Development Charges Act. So just to bear that in mind, that this is not just applied to things enacted under the Municipal Act. So.
Yes. Member Burkett.
Thank you. Through the chair to Allison, when you say development charges, so the mayor has the ability, if we're charging development charges on industrial, we can waive them? I see that.
The answer is yes, absolutely. That's the short answer. The long answer is none of the underlining regulations change. So actually, if you watch the Grey County, that question came up and John Mascaron answered it and said, you still can't change the Development Charge Act. So if you decided that you want to waive them on industrial, you cannot move them to other classes. So you can't move them to commercial and residential. So the only other source of that money is the tax base. So it's a yes, but.
So supplementary, if I may, so it becomes on the levy then? Is that what happens? We
That
have
is
to make it
correct.
up somewhere.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So just supplementary, if I may, I asked this question yesterday, Allison, at county council, and I didn't get an answer, and maybe at your conference, maybe they'll have an answer. So now that the county's looking at downsizing and they're bringing it back to our prospective municipalities, does a mayor have the authority to veto a decision that he doesn't like at this county council table?
The answer is no, because you are not a mayor at county council. You are a member of county council.
He's talking when it comes down here for them.
Oh,
No, here, because it has to come back to our prospective municipalities for 2/3 majority. Does a mayor of any municipality have the authority, if he doesn't like the way council has voted, to say yes or no?
So the answer on that is no. Because we're not asked the process for the county piece is not asking the municipality to pass a bylaw. They're just asking for a resolution. So the mayor's veto powers apply to bylaws. They
Curious-
don't apply to resolutions. So the county passed the bylaw and all they're going to be seeking from the 16 lower tier municipalities is a resolution as to whether or not they are in support or against the restructuring.
So I'm surprised the clerk did not have an answer for me.
It was in there, the requirement for coming to the local municipalities for a resolution on the matter was in the county press release that came out.
Okay, thank you.
if I may, through the chair, we're just, because we don't know all these things, we're just spitballing, but it would be a fun legal question because the clerk is correct. They're not looking for a bylaw. However, council adopts their proceedings by bylaw. So I suppose the mayor could veto the confirmatory bylaw and then the decisions didn't happen. I don't know. It's very complex and I just thought about that this second, but I think it's possible. I know. Sorry, I'm just thinking out loud.
That said, the clerk would strongly recommend against ever vetoing a confirmation bylaw because it would nullify every decision in the minutes made by committee or council for any last sets meetings. So it wouldn't just impact the one item. So, yes. Thank you.
Member Minnings?
I thank you. So 3 questions. First one. I seem to remember when the strong mayor powers came in a couple of years ago, that it was something mayors or could accept or not, or decline. Is that still the case?
No. So right now with the new, it used to be that was the housing pledge. So if the municipality signed the housing pledge, they got the strong mayor powers and there were some that declined to sign it.
Okay, thank you. So my second question is, do strong mayor powers become delegated to deputies? So in the case of an absence, not necessarily a permanent absence like you gave, but do they default to the deputy mayor?
Through you, Mr. Chair, no, they do not.
Okay, my last question is, you mentioned that the mayor now has or as of May 1st, has oversight over the CEO and all the departments and everything. And that's for all these councils with more than 6 positions. So when I think about that, my own experiences in this township, for example, so when we have my question is about, is there consideration whether a mayor is full-time or part-time? Because I understand that some councils have, or in townships have a full-time position, like as a mayor. So the mayor would be in the office full-time and have that sort of ins and outs of working. And just from my own unrelated experience in various offices, being in an office is a different experience than, for example, not working inside an office. So I'm just wondering how that even works, and would part-time mayors be required to work full-time inside offices, or I'm just trying to figure out the logistics of this.
Through the chair, I'll take that one. The short answer is no, there's no requirement for it to be a full-time mayor. It's just if you were on the list of 169, it doesn't matter what your experience or your background is, you have strong mayor. That being said, in my circles of colleagues, of course, this creates a lot of angst, and there's a lot of discussion about should that happen and the mayor want to run the organization, is that constructive dismissal of the CAO? Right? Because that's our job, not his job. And nobody really has the answer to that. And again, strong mayor powers gives them powers, but it doesn't override the underlying laws. So, you know, we've been all watching with interest what's been happening in our neighborhood. And I would expect the person who was didn't actually start would probably looking at a very large severance for that decision. I mean, I don't know what his contract said, but regardless, employment law still stands. So the mayor can make decisions, and there's some questions around whether that's in good faith or not in good faith. And then there are the consequences that go through it. And the province hasn't made any linkages to those. If you do A, B might happen. So it's complicated. Lots of conversations happening about it.
Member Burkett?
Through the chair. Allison, you said something about, I don't know if it was you or Madam CEO that said something about overriding a planning decision. Does strong mayor powers, can they override the document that the foundation of planning and what it's built on just by saying he doesn't like it and allowing homes to be built?
Through the chair, I think I think that's a yes. We are still working through the Planning Act side. So for example, the official plan is adopted by council. I don't believe it's a bylaw. However, the zoning bylaw is a bylaw. All the zoning bylaw amendments are bylaws. So the mayor could veto those. I was watching on the news the other night, and my local mayor, I use names on the camera, but my local mayor directed staff to bring forward a bylaw to change a property from residential to industrial, which is interesting because I'm not sure how that could home built, but again, the guide, I think we'll talk about that later when we talk about what you think about these things. I think that's the next discussions. Without any guide rails, I don't think there's any consequences of that, but they can do so without a public meeting, without the proper planning process, without notice. Yeah, it's a little frightening, honestly.
So supplementary, if I may, Madam, through you, the chair to Madam CAO. So you're saying that even though we're a two-tiered system, the county looks at all our large applications, a mayor could still have no regard for their input and still veto that as well? Like, I'm struggling with this.
I think so. I don't know that the legislation doesn't talk about two-tier systems, so there's not a lot of clarity about that. But I think the the things that the mayor can do are fairly clear. So I think the answer is yes. And again, you're getting into some really tricky legal things that I think will be challenged in the court. I mean, the public isn't going to love this if, you know, some mayor decides whatever they decide and there was no process. I don't know. I don't know the answers to all of these questions.
It's interesting because it's one of those pieces of legislation that's been in effect since 2022. But it hasn't been tested that much in the courts yet, which is where the rubber will eventually hit the road on some of this stuff. And the more municipalities that have this, the more likely it is to be tested. So, and because there are no guidelines since 2022 that have been set out for the province outside of that municipal affairs general guide for council members on these powers. The legislation is what it is. They haven't set out parameters or anything like that to buffer it. So while they've set out provincial priorities, to Madam CIO's point, how broadly you interpret those provincial priorities, or how broadly the mayor interprets those provincial priorities, because it's not up to the mayor to consult with staff. There's no requirement on that. The mayor can walk in on a Monday morning after having thought about it on the weekend and say, I'm going to give written direction to the director of planning that I want to see a report on this. I'm going to give the director of public works that I want to report on X. Right? I want to report on X and bring it forward. They can also say, I am bringing forward a bylaw on this with no public input, and require only, if it meets those provincial priorities, can pass it with 1/3 of council. So not a majority, not a super majority, just 1/3. Now, if a mayor does that, and this goes to the workflow I will send you, there is an ability of council to veto that, but then the mayor can veto the veto. It's a bit of a bouncing ball. So same with the budget. Like if council really disagreed with the budget presented by the mayor, and this is a bigger issue in the larger cities where the mayors absolutely have a huge hand in writing the budgets. And have a huge office and their own staff that write it for them, right? Council can veto the mayor's budget, but then the mayor can still veto council's veto. So it's like a piñata, for lack of a better description. Then you never know where things are going to fall. And it's a very clerical process to go through, because every single piece of that requires administrative motions to happen. So yes.
Member Burkett, did you have a follow-up?
Thank you, through the chair. So this is totally mind-boggling to think what could happen. If you had a mayor that was on the take from a developer, and developers wanting to push things through, and that you had a mayor that was, even though he took an oath of office, like I no disrespect to the province. I understand that sometimes there may be some struggles, and the fact that we need to build these homes, but on the other side of it, there needs to be guidelines. Like there just isn't enough latitude here for us to understand how this all unfolds in today's world. Like it just doesn't make sense. Why would you have us sitting here at this table? You just need a mayor. That's all you would need. Like it destroys the whole idea of democracy. It's so wrong on so many fronts.
Yes.
I would suggest that you're probably done this discussion and moving into your discussion on the
Yeah,
motion.
We can do
So
that.
I think you could I think it's a great discussion and you could probably bring those up, but maybe pass your motion. This is just an information report. It is what it is, but
Yeah.
I think on the motions, you're going to have some opinions and something.
I
you wanna
agree.
share.
We'll keep the political part to the political stuff, although you have a question and I have a question or two.
So mine is, we will in the future be having more discussions on where this is going and where it's at, because you will be going to different training and being able to bring this back to us with and more clarity, because I did see that financial one. I didn't realize you were going to go to one. So, because I think it's something we probably need to just sort of get our heads around and think about, and things will come forward as you find out.
Thank you. So if some of it's just like a process thing, so on the bylaws piece, just so you understand the veto process, I'm probably just going to send you just a bubble diagram as to here's the process. I won't bother bringing back a report because the legislation's not changing. The director of finance will be bringing forward a specific report closer to budget, dealing with how the budget process will work under this new structure. So that will come back to council. I don't think the CEO and I have heard of any changes to the actual legislation being recommended. So the legislation is in place. So what's in the report is what's in effect. Hasn't changed since 2022. The only thing that's changing is the list of municipalities. So what we'll do is, as we have additional information such as workflows that are useful, I will just send them to you. It might not be another report back about other miscellaneous pieces. The budget will come back. So.
Okay, that sounds fair.
Thank you. Through the chair, I also wanted to respectfully lower your expectations of the training because my understanding, so when this dropped, it was a surprise to everyone. So as you know, I'm the president of OMA right now. And so our executive director has lots of connections at the ministry, and he called and said, like, what is this? And essentially this is a political thing. Like, it wasn't like the Ministry of Municipal Affairs staff had input into what was happening. So I'm not sure that they can answer our questions any better than we can answer our questions just based on what has happened. So I think they're going to I think the training is going to be about procedural things. This is what you need to do, but it's not going to get into the nitty gritty of, we have questions about, can they do this? Can they do that? I just don't think they're there yet. I think they're figuring it out as we're figuring it
Yeah,
out.
you may get a session in email that speaks.
Yeah.
Maybe that would probably be a more appropriate forum, but. We're getting that.
Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, and I'm just, yeah, it's a lot to think and a lot to try to absorb. And I'm sure, according to that, John Mascaron, that, as you said too, is there will be a lot going into the judicial system to try them all, because before it was mainly concentrated on building homes, and now it's just elephant in the room.
If I can, just one point. So for council's information, I think I noted in my staff report, we will have a website up that will explain and lay out and link to what the powers are. And whenever a delegated authority is done, or whenever the mayor signs a piece of paper under the act, that will be posted. So you try and be as transparent and open as you can on these processes. If you want a sample of what that looks like, feel free to look at Bradford or Innisfil's web pages. They have excellent pages on this that detail the legislation and have drop downs for each year as to what directions and such that the mayor has done. And if you look at Innisfil, some of it's very repetitive because every month the mayor has to sign something that just confirms that the bylaws are not going to be vetoed. Right? So there's the odd exceptional one in there that was a written direction or such, or back to when this thing was originally brought forward to them in 2022. The first one up is one from Mayor Dolan that delegates most of those administrative powers back. So there are municipalities within the county that have experience on this. So feel free to call or ask questions from your counterparts that are living through it and have for about 1.5 years now.
Thank you. Member Taylor, do you?
Yeah, just a quick question on definition. So when you say 1/3 council and 2/3 council, can you equate that with this council? Because am I assuming 1/3 is 1/3 3?
Love numbers.
Yeah, I like numbers too.
Yeah.
Just what's 1/3 and 2/3 equate to?
5 out of 7.
So if the mayor wants to veto and he needs a third, that is because it's a third plus one, which John Mascaron was very confusing about, but I'm guessing it's a third over. So if he wants to veto, he needs 2 others. If you want to reverse veto, you need 5 of 7. That's how the math works.
Thank you.
3 or 5, yes, three for the mayor to pass something with a third majority, and if I understand the scuttle from the ministry, the reason that they picked it was anyone council over 6, because 6 divides by 3 nicely. That was the limit of the thoughts that went into this.
Thank you. Yeah, I just have a couple of questions and one comment. So, I mean, in terms of the government's priorities, we've all had the benefit of the throne speech there 2 weeks ago. It's pretty clear what their priorities are. As frightening as some of them may be, it'll be interesting. But on the administrative powers, I have a question. So if the mayor can direct municipal employees I read that he can go out there and tell a guy getting in the truck to go over to Jane's house, clean her culvert and come back. That makes the mayor a supervisor under the Health and Safety Act and subject to the laws and liabilities associated with that. That's what I'm reading into this so far.
Absolutely. You are correct. That has been a huge conversation at my OMAA table, and we have written the province numerous times to say the mayor then becomes the controlling mind of the corporation with all the risks and liabilities that come with that. Was that your intention? Are you aware? Do you understand? We haven't gotten any response to that, but absolutely,
Yeah.
it's a huge.
So that,
concern.
and of course, related to that are the interference with union contract arrangements that come with all of that as well. Anyway, I hope we get some answers. The second thing is, if the mayor can delegate appointing or terminating our CAO, who the hell is he delegating it to? Is it to a committee? Because
Yeah.
I'd like to know who this person or group is that's going to fire Laurie.
The requirements are quite clear in the act. The mayor can delegate hiring and firing of CAO to council, no one else, and he can delegate the rest of the department heads to the CAO, should he or she choose.
Yeah. But you'd have that now. Yeah, okay. My third question relates to the prescribed local boards and committees of council. I'm not understanding what that means. So can a mayor put together a committee, like say, of their favorite people, say developers, and stack this and do it and have them make the recommendations for council, which then is subject to these laws as well? Can that be done?
Yes.
Holy smokes. Okay, thank you. That's all I.
So remember, we're just the messenger here.
Yes.
Sorry, through the chair, just to remember Brennan's comments. If this, like, for example, our neighbors, did they have to have 2/3 or third majority to do what he did?
No, because it's different powers. It's administrative powers, not a veto power. So yeah, it's very complex, but no. Sorry, the clerk was whispering to me, there is a portion in the act that talks about the mayor doing things in good faith. So the mayor has immunity for the decisions that he or she makes if they're done in good faith. Now, if you watch the Jan Mascarin piece, that probably will be litigated at some point. What does in good faith mean? Not defined.
But right now, good faith means provincial priorities. That's all we know. That's the starting point. Oh, really?
Through the chair, Allison set it out to administrative and veto powers. So the administrative powers are not tied to provincial powers. The veto powers are tied to provincial powers. For example, where I live, the mayor has used his powers to put up a $250,000 flag, something about a soccer field. And yesterday he made an executive order, which I have not read about in the Municipal Act. So I don't know where that I don't know what an executive order is. It's a US thing.
It's what he's calling his mayor direction.
I guess, yeah. So it's pretty loose on what can be done.
I can follow up on that. I think that the trick and the unknown with this is that there's no enforcement. So there's no enforcement of this. So if a mayor is kind of stepping in wildly into the thin gray zone of what they're interpreting to be the provincial priorities, there's no check on that. So council, so again, I just want to make sure there's the 3 categories of powers and a couple miscellaneous ones. The ability to pass bylaws and use the veto thing only applies to the legislative pieces and the budget piece. It does not apply to the administrative powers. The administrative powers are straightforward. These are your powers.
Member Cox.
So, but what if those administrative powers do something that may not be totally lawful? Is that mayor now open to a lawsuit?
If the mayor thought they were acting in good faith, then the indemnification piece would kick in. But again, that's something that would have to be tested by the courts and would have to be subject to someone bringing an application forward.
I guess he can't fire us.
Yeah.
The mayor cannot fire you. However, the mayor can make a lot of decisions that make your contribution less valuable. And I'm not speaking to this mayor. I'm just talking about the legislation. That's, you know, I'm sure you're all reading the press and it's all about, this is not democratic.
Yes. Well, thank you for probably the most fascinating report we've heard in a few months, to say the least. And I think we're ready for a motion.
Thank you. So this motion is just that administration report A 25-017 dated April 23rd, 2025 regarding strong mayor powers be received for information.
Mover, Member Cox, seconder, Member Minnings, all in favor? It's carried.
And if council wants to just bring up the other two items that were pulled, then they can continue with the discussion on that. Sure. Might as well. You're on the roll.
All right. So moving then to the new business and Member Cox.
Okay, I pulled this and asked it to be because I thought we should talk about it. The other part of I like that we heard the factual parts. Now it's the principal parts. And in principle, I don't believe that this is very democratic, but I also know that there's probably not a thing we can do about it, like to stop it. But I believe, and only part of this motion dealt with what I believe, but it was the only one I had. So I think that maybe if we need to send a message to the provincial government, but I think what we need to do is clarify some guidelines, like just explain to them, like, you know, we understand that you have a reason for this. And I've read some really interesting things that I've copied, you know, different one. The one I read was the lack of definition for a CAO in our municipal act. So maybe we need to clarify it like other provinces had to. So it makes their role safer. And the fact that our staff give us information that is transparent, but it's non-partisan, non-political. So what does this do to staff directors and the CAO when a mayor has the strong powers and he said, may I ask your opinion? Sadly, if you give the wrong opinion, you may be saying goodbye to your job. So there are things that are negative about this, but I think we need to look at parts of it that we need to send to them and say, we understand maybe why you did this, but there are not enough guidelines. It's way too open. There's the provincial priorities. Yes, it's tied to it, but in good faith, what does that mean? So I guess what I'm trying to say is it possible for us to look at some type of a statement? Like, I don't really need to support this one, but to come forward with a statement that says, you know, we see why you're doing it, but you need to have talked to us. You need to talk to the people who are here. What happens to staff? Every election, they sit there and go, oh my gosh, do I have a job? I mean, these are terrible things for people. It's not right that they haven't asked for opinions. And even AMO, when it came out, said, we asked that the next time you did this, we wanted to sit with you and come up with some guidelines. Your association, Lori, your association, the financial association, these are bodies that they should have at least discussed and maybe got some guidelines from. I don't know what our chances are, but I just feel we should say something.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Sorry. Through the chair, I think philosophically, council should start with what their position is. And there's two options that I've seen from all of the resolutions that are coming around. One is, we don't want this, we don't support that. The other is more nuanced, like the deputy mayor was mentioning. We understand why you want it, and here's the things that you should consider. I will tell you, my association has struggled quite a bit about it, because philosophically, we think it's a bad idea. However, we understand with this government, they're not all that interested in hearing that things are a bad idea. And to continue to have a seat at the table, we say the position that we take is we understand you've done this. This is how we can help. Have you thought about, now the mayor is responsible for health and safety, you know, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? But I think that's probably the starting point for council, is which end do you want to land on? And then we can help you with a motion from there.
Just a quick supplemental. I really don't like it, but it's not going to do me any good to just stand there and dig my feet in the ground and say no. I think we need to be more positive about it, and maybe hopefully somebody will listen to us, or the courts will tell them to change something. But that's just my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may comment, the problem, Madam CEO, with your resolution to it is that I do not understand it at all. In fact, I have a different, the idea of fighting strong mayor powers, that's just the beginning right now of this fight we have as Canadians to protect sovereignty and democracy. We keep hearing we have an emergency, so we need to take away your democratic rights. That's a Maple MAGA movement. That's what that is. And you have various extreme leaders in this country pushing that agenda. If you look at what's coming up in Ontario, in essence, this is nothing but the beginning of plans to dismantle public protection, undermine Indigenous rights, bypass public consultation, conduct land grabs, and use MZOs and other things like, I mean, we've already been threatened 3 times with the notwithstanding nonsense. Basically, this is all part of an overall program to remove environmental protection, ignore climate change challenges, and attack, in my view, human health care at the end of the day. If you look at the throne speech, this is a logical piece of that anti-democratic campaign. Like, for instance, we talk about how we're going to have special economic zones coming up. You have to bulldoze through everybody to do those. And most importantly, one of the most important parts of our country are Indigenous people up in the Ring of Fire. I'm not hearing, hey, let's implement one of the 194 things in the reconciliation package, which calls for the First Nations to have more say, better economic positioning. No, we're gonna shove our way up there and let some corporation mind the bejesus out of places. To accept this start, to me, is to accept the package. For me, this is a no-go. This is horrible legislation, and it can only have bad outcomes, and it does nothing to help us with democracy and sovereignty in Canada. So, anyone else have a question? Yeah. I wasn't, he forced me into it. To
Thank you.
Member
Through-
Burkett.
Through the chair. And you're right, Member Brennan. All your points are right, but unfortunately, the province is someone that we rely on, that we need, and we take direction from. So I think we need to have something constructive go back to them based on what Madam CAO has said. We need to be polite when we draft this, but I think we need guidelines. Like it's a document that, yes, it leads one to believe that we don't need what we have here. The mayor can just do everything, which is not right. Like, we have a democratic society and we need each other's input to make those constructive decisions. So I'm not sure how we're going to draft or put in point form what we're looking for, but a little more guidance on what some of the things that they brought forward actually mean. Because I can tell you, your points are well taken. I understand where you're coming from and understand what you're saying, but on the same token, we can't bulldoze our way to provide that letter to the province in that manner. Only because of the funding and the things that we need the province for. And again, we are no more than puppets of the province. The province can abolish us tomorrow if they so choose. Right?
Just for point of clarification, I'm not talking about you. They don't want to hear what they're going to hear, what they hear from me. That's for sure. I'm just suggesting that if we were to petition this thing, we would say, you know what, fundamentally, this is really not good for our democracy and for municipal running our municipalities, and we would love to see them withdraw it. That's what I would like to see. Yeah. Madam Chair, and then
Thank you. I think that's why I respectfully said, I think you need to get your agreement on your philosophy. Either you're against it or you want to go softer. And, you know, I've been reading everything about it to see how other municipalities are doing. And Collingwood came out with a motion that we don't want it. It wasn't supported by the mayor, who said, we are in line for a bunch of funding. It's not great for us to be punching the province in the face. So if council is interested, the clerk developed a motion that's kind of in the middle of that. So at any time we can flash that on the screen and you can pick it apart or like it or whatever you choose.
yeah, we have can we get two questions forward then and then throw that forward? All right, Councillor McIntyre and then Councillor Jensen.
Thank you, through the chair. It's a very awkward position to leave our mayor into. I understand part of what the province wants to do here. And the part I don't understand, I really don't understand. So a number of other municipalities, I'm sure, are facing the same question as Tillsonburg, and someone has mentioned Collingwood and others. I believe that the way we go back has to be worded in such a way that we're not disqualified from them looking at us and saying, oh, you have a strong council, you have a strong mayor, and you have a strong contingency fund, and we're going to close the bank if we need many very, very serious funding from the province and the county and others. So I think it's imperative that we go back with the nicest and the kindest response to this strong mayor's matter. And if we don't, I'm sure that there be consequences on our township and our council, as many others have written that they're not for it. I think that's a knee-jerk reaction. I think that we should be more careful in how we respond to the question of the strong mayors. And I just want to reiterate, I think puts our mayor, our particular mayor, in a very awkward position. So, and I don't like that at all. So I just like to make a point of having it go back in a well-worded response to this question.
Thank you. Member Jensen?
Thank you very much. I agree. There's some concerns here. I know we all share them. I'm in favor of Member McIntyre's comments, and looking at the two consent agenda items that were put forward, I lean towards the letter put forward by the mayor in Saugeen Shores. I think that that letter is well written. It highlights the issues. It doesn't have it's not exactly a motion, but it gets to the point, and it asks for a collaborative approach to discussions and a partnership with the province. I think for me, that would be the approach I'd like to see.
Thank you. Did you want to post that now?
Was just doing that through the chair and mentioned that I think what most municipalities are struggling with is, sorry, I'm not very loud, I know, is every municipality now knows their current mayor. So you know your current mayor's style. It's not an issue. Where the issues will come will be in the next election. And not, I'm not talking about Severn. I'm talking about in general, the 169. You will get lots of people that campaign on, they're going to make huge changes, and that may be popular with the electorate. And before strong mayor powers, we have seen that happen. You get new councillors who are going to change the world, and then they join the municipality assembly and learn all of the legislative things that we have to do and all the reasons why we do it. And they realize it's not so simple. So I think it's going to fundamentally change the next election for all municipalities that have strong mayors. And I actually think it's a detriment to the incumbent or any current council members that want to run for mayor, because you have the knowledge that others don't. So they'll be able to make big promises, which you won't make because you know if you could keep them or not, right? You've been educated on the legislations and all of those things. So I think the next election across the province will be fascinating to watch, and not necessarily in a good way, but fundamentally changed from what we've seen today.
Yes, Member Cox.
Yes, and I also think that once people start to understand this, a mayor's phone will never stop ringing. Because they're going to say, well, can't you get this done now? And can't you do that? And can't you do this? And you should do that. And you should do this. Again, it's a nightmare.
So let's go through this proposal.
Certainly. So a lot of this is taken from this, I believe it's from the Tillsonburg motion. So again, this is a draft. Feel free to edit, pull, what have you. If council, to Member Jansen's perspective, would like to not do a motion and just do a letter, then that's entirely within council's direction as well. So it's basically, the first one is, whereas the Ontario government has proposed expanding the strong mayor powers to 169 additional municipalities under the proposed legislation on May 1st, which would grant mayors in these municipalities more authority, particularly concerning the control of municipal budgets, planning, and operational decisions. Whereas this proposal has raised significant concerns regarding the centralization of power, erosion of local democracy, reduced accountability, and the potential for the abuse of power. And whereas the proposed expansion of strong mayor powers undermines the collaborative nature of municipal governments and diminishes the role of elected municipal councillors in representing the diverse interests of the community. And whereas concerns have been raised about the negative impacts on public trust, democratic participation, and municipal decision-making processes if mayors are given the ability to bypass council decisions without adequate consultation or oversight. Now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Severn does not support the proposed strong mayor powers as currently outlined, supports specific powers to mayors as it pertains to identifiable decisions regarding housing, development, infrastructure, and transit to provide tools that reduce obstacles that can stand in the way of new housing and infrastructure development. Strongly suggests that free reign of decision-making regarding hiring, firing committees, and so forth be removed from the proposed authority. Strongly suggests that members of the current council were duly elected officials by citizens with awareness of one vote per council member, and majority votes are the democratic process. Request that the provincial strong mayor powers proposed to take effect on May 1st be deferred to facilitate a consultation process with affected councils and residents before moving forward. And request that guidelines be developed with respect to the use of the provincial strong mayor powers. So that's the draft that we came up with. It takes a bit of here and a bit of there, mostly from Tillsonburg, but a bit of here and a bit of there. And if council doesn't like it, they can completely throw it out if they'd like, or rewrite it or what have you. We just wanted to give you a starting point for discussion.
I just want to digest this here. Yes, Member Minnings.
I thank you through the chair. I like the idea, as Member Jansen suggested, of a letter as opposed to a motion. I do like that. I think it's a softer approach. And one of the things that I was thinking of as everyone was speaking earlier was what I was told when I first was elected by my colleagues here. And I think it's true, and I refer to it often, is that sometimes decisions are what we're putting forward and what we would support. And then votes happen, and sometimes decisions are made that, you know, sort of aren't the way I would have voted or decided. But that's a decision that's made, and I move forward because I'm a member of council, and that was the majority's, that was a decision that came to us, and I live by that. So when I think of that in terms of the new delegations coming to 160 odd municipalities of mayor powers and that decision being made, I accept that because that's a provincial decision. And as a member of a municipality under the province, that's the decision that's before us. And so back to why I support the letter is that when I read it, it was more of an invitation to come and talk to the mayor or council about how things run here. And it was a softer approach, but I think at the end of the day, we're kidding ourselves if we don't think the decision has been made. And regardless of our own personal stand or position on the decision, we should move forward as a united council under the province and adhere to that decision that was made. So I like the letter approach. I think we do have a opportunity to do that. And for reasons expressed by others, it reflects our culture. It's it's a professional, unity. So I would like to see a letter go forward. I think we have an opportunity to put a letter forward, but where I sit today, the decision's been made and I would like to just work within that. And anyway, thank you.
I like,
Member Cox.
I like the letter. I like the letter idea also. But I would like to see that it's more of us. There's parts of this I get, like our housing part, like, I don't know that it's a big, like, I don't know much more we can do about it. But I would like to also see some lists of positive things like clear limits, set some limits to your provincial priorities. Recognize the role of the CAO and the staff in legislation. I think there was another one I read somewhere. You know, we just need to work together to help each other to find out how to make this work. And we're here, you know, and we want to work with AMO and Roma and OMA and the AMCTO and the MFOA and all those other ones, the acronyms. But I think what we have to say is we like this part of this letter, but I'm sure that the CAO and the clerk could come up with a nice letter with some, these are the things we really like some clarity on. We would like to find out more about this. And have you thought about that?
Madam CEO.
We can happily do that. And clerk was just mentioning, we can put together a letter and we can put it on council agenda so you can see it. The commenting period is already closed and they only gave you like a week to do it.
Yeah.
So, you know, so to Councillor Member Minning's point, I'm pretty sure the decision is already made. I just wanted to add to the deputy mayor. Somehow I'd like to tie in funding to that because the province has made a big to-do about strong mayors are going to get housing built faster. But unless they give us money for infrastructure, unless you can flush the toilet, it doesn't matter what the mayor decides because we don't have capacity. And until they tie those powers to some funding, and that was their initial push, the first 50 with the housing pledge came funding, but there's no funding that's coming with this pledge. And as I say, the Americans say, you know, put up 1,000 homes in West Shore, but if they can't flush the toilet, then his words are not going to accomplish anything. So I just like to add that piece into.
I definitely think that I'd like to hear staff's, you know, input on those types of things, because that's where you see those things. And those are the types of priorities we look at. So that, yeah, I totally agree. Thank you.
Through the chair. Thank you. A letter is fine, but I don't think we should start out by what he started to write. I am writing to express my opposition to the government's proposed expansion. I don't think that should be part of that. Yes. Yeah.
If I may actually like that start, I think that's exactly where it should be. For me, sitting around giving in to everything that's proposed to you from the province or from the feds, that's not democracy. That's nonsense. So when things are wrong, they're wrong. But it's interesting. I'm not sure from your points that you just made, if I could just see that, I'd love to see those points again. They need to be looked at carefully, but was it the firing of the CAO included in that list? It said it wasn't specific to the CAO. And I just want to point out, we have acknowledged there hasn't been a lot of work done. Well, there has been some pretty significant work done. I just wanted this, many municipalities have expressed opposition to the proposal of the strong mail, but this was Bill 3, the old one. According to the Institute of Municipal Finance and Governance at the University of Toronto, February 23rd, 25, this translates to lower levels of public service and less attention to constituents. Clearly a setback for issue management in Ontario. So we already have respected organizations telling us that this is a problem. And, I just got to drive that point home. This does not make things better, folks. Entire.
Once the letter is written through the chair, and once the letter, who's going to sign the letter? Will that be the clerk? Or the mayor? The strong mayor will sign that? Yeah, again, that puts him in a very awkward position. Don't we feel that? I mean, maybe the CAOs.
Yeah, through the chair, we will bring the letter so council can see it, but what I'm hearing from most of the members, except for one passionate one, is you want a softer approach. So I respect Councillor Brennan's passion, but I'm not hearing that in the majority.
All right. So
I don't disagree with them, however, I'm hearing the majority speak.
I guess we need a motion at this point. It sounds like the motion will relate to preparing a letter for future consumption and approval.
Thank you. We actually don't need a motion. It's just direction to bring forward the letter. So the CAO and I will work on that letter probably with the mayor between now and when the agenda goes out, and you'll see it in advance because the draft letter will be on the agenda. So you'll have a chance to review it beforehand. And by then, if the legislation is approved as we expect it will be, then the strong mayor powers will be in effect. So.
All right. I think we should have a bio break before we continue at this point in time. So can we take about 8 minutes and Let me know. Are we ready? Dan's ready. All right. At this point in the agenda, we will move into the new business, and I'm going to pass the chair to our vice chair, Councillor Taylor.
Okay, thank you. So I'll put on the item G1. Member Brennan looking for support for Canada's Climate Caucus. I'll pass it over to you, Member
Yeah.
Brennan.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, some events that I ran into in the last 2 weeks really sort of brought this to the fore, and I just thought I would bring it up because I had a million questions around the issue. So this relates to communications and media relations, and under our codes of conduct, Section 18. It states that official information relating to decisions and resolutions of council will normally be communicated to the media by a communications officer, and the official correspondence would be by the clerk. So that sort of gives you a broad outline. And then you say to yourself, well, what does that actually mean? And then they go on and say members may be requested to comment on policies in some instances, blah, blah, blah. It goes on, and in the event of a council decision, if it has not unfolded the way it was intended by any individual, the information shall be communicated to the public in a forthright manner, which identifies the problem and corrective action. It's not that you have to disagree with all or agree with all decisions, like, if you lose on a vote, 4-3, whatever. But basically, you need to show respect for the democratic process when a decision is made. That doesn't mean you have to say, I support what they said after you fighting against that for the whole time. You sound like an idiot if you do that. So, so that section is intended to prevent a member from outlining the rationale, but it relates generally, from what I can understand, to specific. But it relates specifically.
Stop you for 1 second,
Yes.
because I think if I set it up, I see some confused faces. So I think if I set it up for,
I'm leading into this now.
If I set it up a little bit for council, then they will see.
If you
where
want to, sure, yeah, by all means.
We're going. So Councillor Brennan, as we know, is our passionate environmentalist, and he's involved in many causes. So mornings I come in and I read the paper. So there was a newspaper article that says Councillor Brennan supported whatever he supported. So doing my job, the Department of no, you shouldn't do these things. I called up Councillor Brennan and said, so I'm not really comfortable reading the Township of Severn councillor supports this because it's not something that has been supported by council. So either you should couch these in, this is a personal cause, and we don't dispute that you're a councillor, or you get councillor endorsement to speak for you. So I think you just jumped right into it, and I could see some confused faces.
All right, sorry. Don't,
because what you were talking about didn't necessarily relate to your.
I thought it would help to set the
relate
stage.
to your motion. So
All right.
that's where we're going. That's where we started, and that's how we got here. So
let me move.
yeah, I saw some
move
faces,
into a more focused
so hope that
discussion.
helped.
Yeah, and yeah, thank you for that. Anyway, the challenge for all of us, if not for some of us at least, but if not all of us, is that we often deal with matters that are bigger than our focus role as councillors. And for me, it tends to be on matters pertaining to 3 areas: environment, energy policy, and maintaining and enhancing a progressive democracy, as you witnessed earlier in this conversation today. For you, it might be a position on housing or tariffs or whatever, but we all come from our own experience. Associated with the existing and evolving crisis that we're dealing with on these subjects, many, including me, believe strongly that there is a need for every single pro-democratic federal, provincial, and local elected official to use every legal tool available to challenge autocracy. Every leader who stands up encourages other leaders, political and institutional, to do the same. So, and any one of us can be involved in various organizations or things and so forth. So like it gets murky. Actually, I sent a letter to the ombudsman on Thursday last. I'm waiting for a response, trying to get some clarification around these issues of councillor title versus spokesperson and so forth. When I get it back, I'll be happy to share what they say, but there's nothing yet. One when we're dealing, like, it's complicated nowadays too, because there's the social media aspect of things and things happen fast. For instance, I have two LinkedIn accounts. One I think is sort of like my counselor account, and the other one is my personal account. But it's interesting because if you're using something like LinkedIn and you put your title in there, your title would be Counselor Ward 3. The public doesn't separate the two, has been my experience. And of course, if you're standing up in a public audience because you're speaking to something or you're attending some sort of convention as a counselor, you can stand up and say, this is my personal opinion, but, and that's a great way to go. This is my personal opinion, and then speak. And where you can do that, it works. Now, what's interesting is, I just want you to have the scenario, because I'm really, really proud of what happened last week. We had a really successful campaign, but it did not go the way I had understood it was going to go. So I'm a member of the Canadian Climate Caucus. There's an Ontario chapter. They meet at AMO and so forth. And it's all past and current elected mayors. It also involves some provincials, but mostly it's elected mayors, deputy mayors, and councillors. And that group associated, if you looked at the attached letter I put there, associated with the group, that C40 group that's noted on the letter, the C40 group is 40 international mayors working on climate, and they work closely with like the UN and so forth. So they work with Climate Caucus to come up with this federal campaign. I don't need to go through all the things that are in there, but so basically at a meeting, we were asked if we would support the letter. And I said, well, of course, this is perfect. I love all these points. It's great. Ding. And so when we got the notice, they said, so would you like to add a quote to this? And I said, well, this is what I would say. So I didn't think much more of it until I got a call from the communications person who said, we'd like you to go on CBC on Tuesday. I went, what? And so I said, sure, yeah, you know, and not only that, so I was on CBC 4 times, 2 days in a row, and on the night versions of the same program. And some of you may have heard it, some of you didn't. I was personally very happy with the message I relayed, but it came up that quick. So I called the mayor when I found out, and I said, I'm going to be on CBC. And Mayor Mike said, I'm going to be at the freaking airport. So he gave me some great tips, and I was grateful for his advice. On I went. Then there was and Lori had said to me, well, you were interviewed by, I think, Aurelia Matters. And I wasn't interviewed by Aurelia Matters. So Aurelia Matters took that document and printed it. I had no conversations with Aurelia Matters at all. Not that I have any regrets. I was glad to see it, but it was like, holy jumping, this thing really, this is flying here. So that's how that came about. So I thought, okay, other than the normal, you know, things like, you know, this is my personal opinion, and some of these things are not directly related to council decisions, it gets murky, and it's getting murkier in terms of social media. And that was my questions to the ombudsman, where like, I'm not understanding how we deal with social media this way. Do you have anything? Hopefully they have something. I know CAO, Madam CEO said that they're also looking at updating these guidelines as we go through time. So it's a little confusing, but in the interim, you see the letter and what it was that I advocated. And I was hoping that on this particular matter in particular, I'm a member of Climate Caucus. I'm going to stay a proud member of Climate Caucus. It consists of highly respected councillors, mayors, and deputies from across Canada. And I thought, well, how do I deal with this? Because Lori doesn't phone me every time I talk to somebody. And I thought maybe, and I didn't talk to the mayor about this. I thought, well, because I didn't want to compromise him in this, I thought, let's leave this thing open. But I thought if I could just, like, when we're dealing, for instance, when we're going to be dealing with the project, it's going to be a couple of months. We're going to be dealing with our own climate project. Definitely, I see that very clearly as the mayor is the spokesperson for whether we do it, don't do it, do a modified version. That one makes sense. It's specific to our budget, our geographic area, our mandate. But when you're dealing with broader mandates of a more federal it if this happened again, I'd kind of like to know that I'm not, that people aren't going to be concerned. So it's a matter of requesting trust on the matter. I would, of course, do everything I can to say that this is my personal view. Our council, this is not a decision of council. But you don't always get to do that. Certainly, I did not get to do that on this particular letter. And so I was hoping, well, if I could get an element of faith here, if I run into this situation again, and I could call the mayor and say, Mike, they're asking me to do that, and tell them, because you have like literally a day or two. You're not going to have a council meeting over it, or you won't be able to use these tools to send messages. So what I was saying is would this council be comfortable with that approach that I've suggested here in the draft resolution? And that's it. I leave it back to.
Okay, I'll ask any members of the committee want to speak. Member Minnings.
Hey, thanks. Through the chair. So just generally, and also to Member Brennan, I do appreciate that this is your passion area, the environment, etc. But I appreciate the context from the CEO as to how this came forward, because I was confused even after reading what's in the agenda. I don't support you being the spokesperson within your role or under the umbrella of your position as an elected official and part of this council, and certainly not on behalf of the township. The fact that you're a member of the Climate Caucus group, to me is no different than other memberships that we may all be involved in or have positions in. I know my passion project are seniors and groups that work with seniors and advocate for them, but I would never bring that forward as a position within my role as a councillor or a member of council. That's something I do outside. So unfortunately, and then based on what you said, that you don't have any control over what people say and in what context things are published. When I read the article before I heard from the CEO today, it was misleading because I thought I actually missed a conversation or a memo because it clearly was stated that it was as part of Township of Severn. And I think that's very unfortunate. So I'd hate to have that happen a second or third time. So I would encourage you to continue to do what you do outside of council and in your spare time, but I don't see the value for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Burkett.
Thank you through the chair to Member Brennan. I think it's a great initiative that you have. If you're going to continue in this group, that's great, but you're not implicating that it's a decision of council. It's strictly on your own merit and your passion for it. And I think this will be a wealth of information for this council moving forward in years to come as climate change is here. And we've seen it in the last month with the ice storm, and to have someone on this council with your depth of knowledge is going to be an asset for us all. So I'm happy to support the fact that you're speaking on behalf of yourself, not on behalf of council, and you belong to this group. And the interview that you did was very well done. Congratulations.
Member Cox.
Sorry. I'm not sure. I don't have a problem with this. I just don't like the idea of you being a spokesperson. If you want to be a member of it and you want to speak to things, that's fine. But to be designated as a spokesperson almost to me says you're speaking on behalf of us. So if you want to be a member and speak, I'm a member of tons of things and I speak. And, I just don't like the title to be a spokesperson, because I think that's where people are going to get mixed up, like you said, between council and personal. So if you want to be an active member of this, I'm an active member of multiple things, but I just don't like the idea, because they're going to think that if you say I'm the spokesperson, they're going to think you're speaking on behalf of us. And that's where I have a problem on that title of spokesperson. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Member McIntyre, and then I'll have a comment, and then I'll let member Brennan come back.
Thank you. through
Yeah,
the
I'll
chair.
put Dan in after member McIntyre. Thank you.
Through the chair, I'm likely to be in support of this. However, as being a spokesman, I don't know, being a member of council, and if you were to preface everything with saying it's your own opinion, and, you know, like, chew your words, watch your words carefully in how your opinion comes out as being a member of the caucus. And I think you'd be a good representative, and you can come back to council with a great deal of quality information. So I think it's just a matter of verbiage now. How is it that you're going to be a representative of this caucus and speaking on behalf of yourself, and carefully wording what you say? And I think you'd be a fairly good member of this caucus, not a spokesperson for the group. But in the main, I'm in favor of it.
Thank you. Member Jansen.
Thank you very much, Member Brennan. I know that you're very passionate about this issue, and that comes from the wealth of knowledge that you've gained throughout your career and afterwards. I guess for me, I'm not sure if we need to, as a council, to, you know, give you a, as you say in the motion, permission, I guess, or that we're going to be, you know, this resolution to support you in being the spokesperson. I feel that's more of a personal decision. If you're going to be a spokesperson within an outside group that is not council. I do understand that this climate caucus is targeting mayors and councillors to, I guess, heighten the importance of the initiative, and I don't see any problem with that. I guess for me, I'm not sure if I'm prepared to, you know, say that the council is supporting you. I think that it's a personal decision. You can't really shed the title of being a councillor in the township of Severn. I guess it really just comes down to how you're wording things. And as the mayor said earlier, you know, you're doing a great job. It's just about being careful not to provide context that may seem like you're speaking on behalf of, as opposed to you're speaking up on behalf of Climate Caucus. I'm hoping that makes sense.
I'll let Member Cox jump in, and then I have a comment.
Yeah, I guess the problem is if we endorse this, it means it's endorsed by us. And I guess that's where I have a problem.
Madam Clerk.
So perhaps an alternate motion to the one member Brennan has proposed, and it's member Brennan's matter, so he would have to accept the alternate motion and be just that the council of the township of Severn supports member Brennan in a personal capacity, participating as a member of the Climate Caucus and their various campaigns, if that's the extent. So it's just supporting and participating in a personal capacity, and go from there.
Member Cox.
But that means then, like, do I come and ask you to support me to be a Lions Club member and all those different things? I think that's my life over here. And I just go to those things. I don't ask for anybody to endorse me to belong.
Yeah, go ahead, Madam Clerk.
And maybe the CEO can help me out here, but I think what's generated this is where's the line between counselor and where's the line between your personal? So if you weren't on council, would you be actively a member of the Climate Caucus, right? So, and if the answer to that is no, then it's different. Then you can be a member of a Lions Club in a personal capacity, even if you weren't on council. This is a Climate Caucus is something that you could not participate in, just from the response from member Brennan there, if he wasn't a member of council. So I think like the participation level is, or a past member. So it's just trying to provide some guidance on where members participate and don't.
So supplemental, you mean you only can belong to this if you're on council or were a past member of council?
Yes, the climate caucus.
You need a microphone.
Speak, go through your mic there.
the climate caucus, the element or the component, like they have other meetings with non-elected officials, but the monthly climate caucus meetings are for elected and past elected municipal, provincial, and federal people in Canada. That you have to meet that criteria to participate in those meetings. So that's different, like has been inferred. When I go to a Lions Club meeting, I'm not there because I'm counselor. I'm there because I'm a member. Now, mind you, I'm not a member of any group now because I quit all those groups when I ran for council. Well, I did.
Supplemental to what Member Jansen said was that, so they're asking people to endorse it that have a political affiliation in order to put forward their format. Am I right? Through the chair to Councillor Jansen?
Correct, yeah. So I'm going to jump in, just for information, Severn Sound has a municipal climate leadership committee, and they've met a couple of times. And in fact, they're working on a report to come to councils within the Severn Sound on climate change vulnerability and risk assessment. So I'm wondering, would it be no harm in inviting Member Brennan to attend some of these? I think they're every 3 months to come to the meeting and add your comments to it. And they're definitely working on climate, et cetera, et cetera. So I support what everyone else has been saying, that I don't really think you should be a spokesperson for this, but then join in with that, still be part of the group, and then join in with Severn Sound as well. Madam CEO.
Thank you. I think it's a complicated thing, and Member Brennan asked me what other municipalities did, and I don't know, maybe they're not aware of this happening. It was just the piece in the newspaper that caught my eye, and to Councillor Minning's point, it wasn't something that went to council. I'm hearing loud and clear, though, that council is not comfortable. So rather than an alternative member, the member may wish to withdraw his motion. That might be the way. When the deputy mayor asked about how you get on that actually struck me as interesting, because normally when it's a council representative, it comes to council and council sends a representative to something. So it's interesting. I'd be interested how the other mayors and councillors are doing it. I don't know, and maybe I'm being overly difficult, but I was trying to keep the line between what's council business and what's individual business.
Okay,
Yeah.
we've all spoken. I'll let Member Brennan
Yeah,
speak.
hey, you know what? I guess I gotta figure, what I gotta try to do, and what I've always tried to do is you sort of say, this is my concern. There was no opportunity in this correspondence with the media to do that. That option did not exist. So that's why Lori called. I can say a couple of things. There is nothing in this world that's going to stop me from speaking out on climate change. Absolutely nothing is going to get in my way. I'll fight a lawyer, anybody. We will continue, and I will do that. And I will fully respect the mayor as the spokesman, and certainly on any local issues. But I will be speaking again and I would do this in a heartbeat tomorrow again. So I want to be clear about that. So I just was trying to sort of get this, and the title will come up. And if you're confused, I'm sorry, I'll do my best. But the fact of the matter is, I appreciate your comments and your concern. And with all due respect, that is great. I just want you to know you'll be hearing from me again. It's because it's going to happen. And so I was just trying to find some way to be respectful and be respected. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you for that. Member Burkett and then Member Jansen.
Through the chair. So I can respect that, for Brennan, but I think moving forward, like as long as you're part of that committee, but you're not implicating it as a council decision, even though, and I know that you didn't do that. You didn't do that. So I think, and I know Madam CEO's concerned, she's trying to protect us all. And that's why she brought it forward. And as she said, like, I don't know how these other mayors and deputy mayors, if they actually brought it to their prospective councils, to allow them to speak on their behalf. I'm not sure how that worked, but if you're okay with,
I would doubt anyone. If there's one, I'll ask. I would doubt if any one of them did that.
But I
That's
think-
something I can check on and try to get more.
but I think we're all okay with you sitting on it, just as long as it's Phil Brennan, not a member of Severn Council and not speaking on their behalf, on our behalf.
No, and that's never been the case,
Yes.
but it is Phil Brennan council. That's the thing,
But
that's
you're-
the point I'm making. Like, that's how you become a member. So,
Okay, we'll let member Jansen and then member Minnings and then member Cox. Are you, okay, member Jansen, then member Minnings. Thanks.
Thank you. And I guess in a roundabout way, that's what this conversation is about. It's about using the counselor as influence, right? And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Member Brennan, you are a member of the town, counselor in the township of Severn. Again, you have a climate background. You're an environmentalist. I don't see an issue with that, but that group is looking for people with influence and with titles, and that's the reason why they're asking counselors and mayors to sign on, right? And I guess if I saw it from my perspective as somebody that comes from a background of labor, I also can't shed my titles. And if I was speaking to the media and they looked up my history, they may also say, Dan is a counselor of Severn as well as working at Toronto Pearson or something like that. So I guess I'm just saying I can't support the motion that's here, but I do support the work that you're doing, so keep up the good work.
Thank you, member Jansen. Member Minnings.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I think that what I'm hearing is that we're all on the same boat, and it's to disassociate yourself from that elite group that needs to have a counselor, an elected past or current or past position to be on it. But I am concerned, Member Brennan, about your just last statement, and that's why I put my card up to speak, is that regardless of what anyone says, you are going to be vocal about that. And I would just caution you that based on that, I will re-listen to your exact words. And if you do proceed, if the decision is not to have you as a member of that caucus table, but rather as a member of the organization. But if you do proceed to want to be a part of those monthly meetings that you shared with us, then, I'm sorry. And this is just something I would have to take that further. And I don't want to do that because you've been given a local option from the acting chair of this committee to go on our local environmental committee, which would really be, I think, a really good spot for you. And again, what associations we're all part of as members, that's great. But your role as an elected official, which you wouldn't get a seat at that monthly meeting were it not for you being a counselor, if the decision by this council, since you brought it forward, is a no, then I'm sorry, it's a no.
Okay,
yeah, I just want to make it clear, I did not come here to get permission to be a member of Climate Caucus. That's not what this is about.
member Cox, and I think we'll come up with a motion from the clerk. Yeah.
We'll go ahead and, or just take it as information. Withdraw. Like, I don't know how you.
So the motion hasn't been tabled. So, but the matter is member Brennan's. So it's up to member Brennan as to whether or not he would like to withdraw or withdraw his proposed motion. If he wants a vote on it, then he can insist on a vote. If he can get a mover in a second.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, you're thinking withdraw, then you're looking at a counter motion? No. So I don't have a problem withdrawing. I don't have a problem with withdrawing it with the understanding that I've clearly made my message to this council today. And it is what it is. So I'm fine with that. And like I said, I would never want to do anything that's respectful of the communications protocols here, but it is a complex world and it's not always going to be easy to say, this is my personal opinion. And so, and that's just the way life is. That's all I say. So I can withdraw with that understanding.
So I just want to be clear for the minutes as much as anything, so that if member Brennan withdraws his proposed motion, that council, from what I'm understanding is that if member Brennan wishes to continue to participate in this matter, that it is not as a council member of the Township of Severn, it is in a personal capacity, and he would not be using his counselor title to do so. So this is where I'm think, like, I've been trying to follow the conversation, and there are multiple different opinions here. So I am trying to figure out where council's direction is, as much for member Brennan coming out of the conversation. So that there's clear understanding from the 7 members as to what the understanding is, because from where I'm sitting, I don't think you have reached that understanding at this point as to what council's will is, or direction to member Brennan, or what member Brennan is willing to accept. So I just want to put that forward.
Member Burkett.
Thank you, through the chair. So Madam Clerk, is there any harm in member Brennan withdrawing his motion? And the fact that to belong to the organization, all he has to do is say that he is a member or is a counselor on the Township of Severn, and just leave it at that. He's not making any decisions. He's not speaking as a Township of Severn representative. Now, am I wrong in stating that? Like, I guess I need some clarity as to his position and what he's doing.
And Madam CEO.
I think the clerk's brought up some good points, is you should all walk away with clarity. One suggestion might be to clarify for everyone, if you were not appointed by this council to be a member of a committee, then it is your own opinion. Right? There's probably better words than that, but I think that's what I've heard is we're happy for Councillor Brennan to do it, and we're happy for you all to do your personal things, but it's a personal, unless, because there are committees that come to council like SSCA. I think it's Councillor Taylor, he was appointed to be our rep on SSCA by the council by motion. So he is speaking for council because he's been asked to do that. I think if you're not asked to do that, then we should make it clear that you're not asked to do that, and it's a personal thing.
Okay, member McIntyre, and then I'll let member Cox, and then member Burkett. Oh yeah, supplemental member Burkett, and then member
Can we
McIntyre.
just, based on what you said, Madam Clerk, can we have a motion to that effect, that member Brennan sitting on the Climate Change Committee is not a direction of council, and he sits on it at his own personal request? Like, it has nothing to do, is that something we can put in a motion so it doesn't implicate council at all? No. All right.
Member McIntyre, and then member Cox. And then Allison can close it up.
Thank you, through the acting chair. My question would be to member Brennan. Are you compelled to identify yourself as Councillor Brennan at all of these meetings? Does the chair or whatever in these meetings, do they recognize the chair will now hear from Councillor Brennan from Severn? Is that the way it's identified, that you're pinned to us as a representative from this township?
I think a fair answer to that would be, it's a little less formal than you have to be an elected member or past elected member, right? So, but when I'm sitting there and I'm looking at the pictures of the mayors from British Columbia and so on and so forth, everyone just uses their first names in the meeting. It's just a bunch of dedicated people trying to solve some problems. So now when the media took over the other day, they wanted quotes from mayors and councillors across. That was the purpose, was to use political leaders to encourage more political leaders to profile the issue. So they didn't ask, they don't, they just say, hey, like, Brennan, do you have a quote? Yeah, well, Councillor Brennan, the councillor from, they didn't say that I was a council endorsed thing. They just said I was a member of the council. Just like I would think that can happen at any meeting. I can go down to a poverty meeting in Barrie and just stand up and say, you know what, I think this is crap. We should be building affordable housing. I didn't get permission here to talk about that, and I don't need it. I don't see that. It's just ridiculous to do that. These are the things that are going to happen. But it's really weird because the organization is like a political entity of sorts, but it's not, right? It's an NGO composed of, and it's primarily currently elected members, in all fairness.
Okay,
But as a
sorry,
fo-
go
just a
ahead.
follow-up, from when I spoke earlier. Can you not identify when, you're making any comment further than with your group that, this is my personal opinion?
Oh, yeah, like there are opportunities, like in any given opportunity, but if we were at a meeting with Sarah, with Sia, I could say, look, you know, from my membership with Climate Caucus, this is what I think would be a good path forward. And I can say, that's my personal opinion. That I can do. I wouldn't presume to interfere with anything that's there. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm going to be pro-climate. I mean, I don't know where you'd be living if you didn't, but the fact of the matter is I'm not a spokesperson for that initiative. I did initiate it here, but I'm not a spokesperson. The mayor is the spokesperson and the lead. I get that. And I would do everything I can going forward to respect that. And I always have. It's not like I ever didn't. This is just a weird situation here where you go like, And then with Lori's call, I thought, well, I'm going to try to resolve this. I didn't know. It never even crossed my mind that was a big deal. And I don't think it is a big deal, frankly, but hey, to be transparent, I brought it forward today.
Member Cox, sorry, the clerk can speak.
Thank you. So I have a thought that's just come up on this as to how to move forward. Is the role of the integrity commissioner is to provide guidance on your code of conduct. Okay. So, and once a term, this is coming up in the next 6 months anyways, is council reviews their code of conduct before the end of each term. So what my proposal is a motion just that staff requests that the integrity commissioner bring forward an amendment to the council code of conduct during the next review with respect to personal participation on groups, committees, and political activism. So therefore, it's in the code. You'd have clear lines. You know where those lines are. Council will have to endorse where those lines are when they choose to approve or not approve any amendment to their own code. So that way it's there, it's above board. Current and any future council would know where that line is going forward. It helps with the transparency, the accountability, that piece. I mean, stuff like SSCA is different. You're appointed by motion at the start of the term. You were all involved in different things midterm, whether it's, the Lions Club or whether it's the Climate Caucus or whether I had a member of council, not a mayor or deputy, or member of council who wanted to participate in the St. Lakes Great Lakes Mayor's Initiative. About managing the water levels and stuff along the Great Lakes at my last municipality. There's a ton of different things out there that have different levels of political sensitivity, community groups, etc. So just wondering if that's an approach to let Ms. Craig come forward with some suggestions based on her expertise and what she's worked with over other municipalities so that you can get out of a bit of the weeds on a one topic item and have a bigger picture discussion. Just as a concept.
Okay, I think Member Cox was first and then Member Minning second.
I can live with that, but I think the issue is an open. Our memberships are not in a high profile political spotlight compared to yours. So if you want to continue being there, I just would appreciate if you continually just said, I just speak on my behalf and then I'm good with it. And then see what the integrity commissioner says.
Member Minnings.
Hi, so thank you. I absolutely agree with this going through the integrity commissioner's office. That's where I was going with my previous comment. However, since it did come forward today and it's on our agenda and the discussion is documented for all eternity on YouTube. The request as it stands the motion should either be removed. And I think it's very obvious that the removal, oh, I would just say it be removed or it be voted on as brought forward. Those are the only two options for Member Brennan right now. And I think we need to close this discussion, and based on whatever the decision is going forward, then council has an opportunity, in the absence of anything by the Integrity Commissioner at some future date, that the decision of council would be the decision of council. And my last comment is around Member McIntyre's questions about, would this be your personal opinion or not your personal opinion? And Mayor Brennan saying, no, absolutely, it's my personal opinion. You don't get a seat at that monthly table without your affiliation. And that's the point. And had it not been brought forward, we wouldn't have known about it. So the fact that it was brought forward, it's here, and it's our responsibility to move forward on this if it stays for a vote, or if the member recounts it, but it's an absolute no from me.
So can I summarize it, Alice? I think there's two issues. One, the motion that was proposed, which I believe is going to be withdrawn. And secondly, what title are you using on this committee that you're on now? So is that the two issues, I think?
I don't think so. I'm there because I'm a counselor. So.
I think the issue is that when you're quoted as being Councillor Phil Brennan, then the interpretation is that you're speaking for Severn. That's where I'm looking at.
I would challenge that. I would challenge that.
Allison, what do you?
Okay,
you do
so
that.
I'm going to honestly take the easier one first here on the Integrity Commissioner piece. So motion one, so I'll split these into two motions. So motion one would be that staff requests that the Integrity Commissioner bring forward an amendment to the Council Code of Conduct during the next review of the code with respect to personal participation on groups, committees, and political activism. One motion.
We have a mover for that. A comment by Member Cox first.
Just a quick one. That's good to bring it forward, but is it worth a call to find out? Or just because it's not in ours, that's why we have to bring it forward to relook at it. Perfect. Thank you. Just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, we
Thank
got a
you.
mover on that. Moved by Member Burkett, second by Member Cox. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, now the second one.
The second motion is that, and this is entirely again dependent on Member Brennan, withdrawing his original motion that he wants to put forward. But the proposed alternative motion is that Member Brennan continue to participate in the Climate Caucus in a personal capacity. And Member
Any
Brennan would
questions
have
on-
to accept that alternate because it's changed from what he.
With the understanding that they will call me a counselor. Okay.
Member Cox.
So maybe that's where what the CAO said should come in, non-appointed. Well, I'm just trying to protect everybody, that if he's not appointed, then no one can, if it's ever read, it will just say he wasn't appointed by council and he's doing this in his own personal capacity. And that makes it very clear. Just so if anybody ever said anything, which I'm sure they probably won't, but it just covers you too. And that way,
As long as we're clear that my title will be used, as long as you're clear on that. So, yeah, it will be used because that's what I am. I'm a counselor on that committee. So that doesn't mean it's a council decision. It means saying, oh, look, they called you a counselor next time, because they will call me a counselor.
Dan, did you have a comment up there? Thank you.
Yeah, I think we need to hear from the Integrity Commissioner on this before we can vote on the second motion.
So could that be through the clerk, a quick call and just say, the ramifications of being called counselor? What does that mean?
If I can supplemental, if I can follow up, just looking at the Climate Caucus website, there's 80, 90, or 100 people that have signed up or more that are counselors or mayors. I'm sure an integrity commissioner has dealt with this kind of issue before and would be able to give us guidance. And I think then we can make an informed decision on this and not put Councillor Brennan in a position where he's feeling like it's him against us or something.
Let me bring this.
Member
Council.
Cox.
Can we talk to the integrity commissioner and bring it back to council?
If that's council's direction, we can work with the integrity commissioner to get an opinion on just this one-off item.
Yep.
And have her bring a report back in closed session, because that would be subject to a integrity commissioner legal opinion. And go from there. I would want to separate the one-off item from the general discussion.
I just think that it protects everybody.
Madam CAO and then member McIntyre.
Nope, we can absolutely do that. I just wanted to set the expectations and time frame. Just having worked with Ms. Craig before, that's a pretty aggressive deadline. So we will get an opinion, but it may not be for council.
Thank you, member McIntyre.
Thank you through the acting chair. When is your next meeting with this group, member Brennan?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. They're monthly. Monthly meetings.
Follow up, does that leave the clerk or the CAO enough time? Or do you want to set one out?
The likelihood of another federal campaign coming up is 4 years away. Right.
I'm with respect to your next meeting with the caucus, it's monthly and it's coming up. And
Yeah, they're monthly. So
did you recently have one or you had?
I think it was 2 weeks ago. I have a
So
lot of meetings.
So it's 2 weeks
I think it was
away
2
for
weeks
the
away.
next- Well, I don't know that we'll get a response from Ms. Craig that quickly, but
I don't
I think we
know.
could maybe send it away and then come back.
Okay, member Minnings, and then I think we're going to try and
Yeah.
wrap this up.
So clarification from the CAO or the clerk. What happens with this motion that's on the table currently? I'd like to have some closure on it.
Thank you. So I have tweaked that original motion a bit to give us I'm going to say a straddle between if say it's a month or so until, or I don't expect it to be, but just in case we don't get something back to council in time for member Brennan's next meeting. And again, this is entirely a draft. Council can do with it what it wills, but it says that member Brennan continued to participate in the Climate Caucus in a personal capacity, not as a representative of the Township of Severn, but using the title of counselor to facilitate his participation until advice may be received on the matter from the Integrity Commissioner. It kind of straddles a month. It's meant to be a stopgap between A and B. And then once that advice comes back from the Integrity Commissioner, then council can give a definitive final direction to member Brennan if that works.
No, you know what? I'm going to leave it at that. It's just related to that issue are all kinds of internet issues as well. Yeah, so we'll leave that for She's saying, please not today. Fair enough. We'll deal with that later. I'm hoping that there is significant clarification by the Integrity Commissioner on those matters when they do report.
Does anyone want the motion read again, or are we okay to have a mover? Moved by member McIntyre, second by member Burkett. All in favor? Yeah, you can go. I'll pass the chair back to member Brennan.
Thank you. Holy, I appreciate all of that. Thank you. We have now back to you, member Taylor, on Pepi Sewage and Storage Facility.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So this is I'm looking today for support for the Pepi sewage facility being proposed. Many residents of the township need the services of septic pump out. In fact, 5 out of 7 here on council are on private septics. There are times when there are no options to get rid of this septic. Most recently was during the ice storm. And it, thanks to our mayor getting involved, was able to salvage a load that was full and had to find a home for it. But Pepi is looking for support from the township of Severn for a project of building a reservoir tank that during times of weather or any other things that they would put that in the winter time, and then they would spread it at the appropriate time during the year. And my thought is that the township support this project with an appropriate correspondence to the township of Tay. So there's things that I was speaking with our CAO and which is the best, I'll ask Lori to jump in and say what is appropriate, what we can do to just let Tay know that Severn believes there is a need for this facility, and then I'll let Lori speak and then let the members make their comments. Thanks.
Sure. Through the chair, my conversation with Councillor Taylor is council could pass a motion supporting the need for a facility, which I think it agrees. However, we wouldn't comment on any zoning application because we haven't done any planning analysis of it, and we don't want to be telling Tay what they should be doing in their municipality. So just supporting the letting Tay know that we support the need for a facility, because I think we do. We know we have an issue here.
Thank you. So any comments, Member Cox?
Interestingly enough, in 1994, Pepi was the first person who came to the new council to tell us that we needed this. And so then we had a group and that didn't go anywhere. I've already talked to, this council has already spoken to Derek about it. The county is in the midst of looking at a review of this for them to be involved. And I do have to agree with the CAO on this. I think in principle, we support it. And we do know there's something going on. But Tay has already said there's a problem, like not a problem, but they have to follow the things, and it's going to be a process. But I'm wondering maybe if I can get hold of somebody at the county who was, and I can't remember who, they said that they had started this. I think it was Mark Aiken did, and that they were going to look for that because of the large number of rural residents in Simcoe County, and this is becoming a bigger issue. And the thing about what they're saying is it's not the first time. When I worked at Moonstone School in the spring, we had 8 trucks, massive, those big ones, sitting there waiting because the flooding had the school, and they had to sit there for 24 hours, some of them waiting for something to open so they could go in. So this is an ongoing, long, horrific thing. And if they ever build one, they should call it the Pepi one, because this man fought all across the United States and Canada, and he was on some board, and he has been telling us this for years, that we needed to do it. So I can go with the proposal that the CAO has said, and I will ask who the appropriate person in the county would be that maybe Adam can get hold of.
Thank you. Member McIntyre was going to comment, I think. Okay. And just as a supplemental, they're not looking for any funding. They're just looking that we support that there is a need for this facility. So I think Madam Clerk has a proposal there, or a motion. Member Brennan, did you?
You're doing a good job though. Thanks. Yes, let's have that proposal. The one that Mark's talking about.
Okay, so the motion reads that a copy of the letter to the Township of Tay dated May 10th, 2024 from Pepi Sewage be received, and further that the Township of Severn requests the Township of Tay circulate Severn on notice when Pepi Sewage applies for a rezoning to support the storage of septage in seasons where it cannot be spread. Further that when such notice is received, the Township of Severn writes a letter of support based on the need for this service only.
Mover. Member Cox, seconder, Member Mennings, all in favor? She passes. Thank you, Mark. All right, committee member updates. And let's start way over here with Member McIntyre.
Thank you, Chair. We have a Chicago Events Committee scheduled for this evening at 5 o'clock to discuss our Canada Day Parade and other matters. Just so everyone knows, we have the boundaries is going to be 2 to 4 at the Oswego Community Center today. And then further after that, I believe online from 6 till 8. So mark those in your book, and otherwise that's just about all I have today.
Thank you. Member Minnings.
Hi, thank you. For Ward 4, we're still recovering from the weather-related incident. But everyone's come together, and I think the community effort was really awesome and really appreciated. So I just wanted to say that, and also acknowledge the work of the township staff who were on the ground helping with debris removal, etc. So that was really wonderful to see. We next update from the Aurelia Public Library, of which I'm a board member. They also had some downtime throughout that, but the library is currently up and active. The usage online has been increasing. I know that Severn Township pays a cost for residents who use that facility. So that's just been really good to see. And I will defer the Culture and Rec meeting that happened last night to the deputy mayor, who will speak to that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, last night we had our Culture and Rec meeting, and the main part of it was the consultants brought forward the 3 concepts for the Coldwater Fairgrounds. We had quite a few comments on it, nothing negative. Everybody was positive about it. Director Belfry brought forward the fact that I think we had like 300 to 400 online surveys completed, plus all the in-person ones. So this is a very highly noted one for us, because usually we are lucky if we get anybody, but no offense, I'm very happy to see it. We did have some discussions on different aspects we'd like to change or jivvy around, and they were very good about it. The rest of it was on the fact that the trail isn't open because of the trees, and the parks aren't open, and they're working on that. And the fact that the Snowmobile Club has offered their help to clear the trails, which is good. We also talked about the fact that the outdoor rinks did very well. And Director Belfry said that the Bass Lake Woodland one was very helped by the volunteers, and I'm sure the Washego one was. And I asked if maybe we could send out some thank you certificates to thank them for their volunteer work. At County Council, I'll leave the other one part of it to the mayor. The Economic Development Subcommittee met. We have, and I'm going to send these out to you. We talked, I didn't get to it because I had a physio, but workforce development, attraction and retention initiatives. There's a Made in Simcoe County tourism strategy. And I'm sure Becky knows all these things, and there's a couple of businesses in Coldwater, and I'm sure other ones. Actually the art gallery in Washego would, because they're promoting homemade artisans and crafts and things. So that's a good one. And then Wendy Timpano brought forward the Economic Development Subcommittee on tariffs and what they're planning on doing. They have a whole initiative and actions with schedules, tactics and outcomes, and that they will be keeping obviously Becky and everybody else informed. My library meeting was very good. We have a newsletter. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 authors coming, and they had a Hobbit Door Craft Night, Tree of Life Suncatcher Night. Every Tuesday, there's a Fiber Arts. There's a baby time on Fridays, and a book club. They've been very busy. Our numbers were the highest in March compared to they just keep going up. So it's a very good thing that more people are using the library. Thank you.
Thank you. How about we go to Member Jansen?
Thank you very much. And through the chair, I'll start with the SAG Southeastern Georgian Bay Chamber of Commerce. We had a recent meeting on April the 17th, followed by a reception at Christie's Mill that I heard was well attended. The chamber is in a healthy position. They're gaining new members, it seems, month by month. I'd like to thank our current, about to be former chamber manager, Lisa Buck, who is retiring. Congratulations. For the BIA, we had a Coldwater BIA, or Business Improvement Area. We had a meeting of the board last night on April 22nd. We crafted a mission statement, which will help us achieve some of the goals that we'd like to see. And we've discussed our upcoming events. The next event in Coldwater is on June the 7th. The garage sale event, of course, the Coldwater Duck Race is the last weekend of May, and that's held by the Lions Club. Bookmarks with all of the events are available. They've been distributed to all the stores in town if anybody would like to pick one up. Other events that are coming up in August is the Fairy Night, followed by our Wizardry event, which is a Harry Potter themed event. And I would like to say thank you to Simcoe County for a tourism grant that we received in the amount of $7,500. That will be put to good use by the BAA. And also to Mark Misson, who has, for personal reasons, decided to resign from the board. I'd like to wish him all the best in the future as well. Thank you. That's my report.
Through the chair. So first, I'd like to thank the EOC committee, the group that met and as we moved forward through this nightmare that happened not only to us, but right across from Peterborough over to Penetang down to Barrie, the people that were without hydro and the struggles that they had to deal with day in and day out. But to the group and what we did and tried to do to help our residents, thank you very much. I think we did well. And I want to thank all members that were on that group. To our staff that were out there day in and day out. And I did come back from my holiday short. I was back 3 days into it. I'm glad I came back. What I witnessed at our West Shore plant was the dedication, not only of the staff in our water plants, but all our staff. But I was there at 12:30 at night trying to understand why the generator went down, seeing if I could help with anything. But our volunteer firefighters out giving notices to boil water, but coming back at 6 a.m. and the same people there working, tired, eyes bloodshot. When I think of what they went through and some of the comments that are resident, I'm not on Facebook, but some of the comments that were made on Facebook were totally disheartening, totally out of context, not understanding. I understand they were frustrated because hydro wasn't on. By declaring a state emergency didn't allow hydro to work any quicker. These men and women were tired. I witnessed as I drove around the township, a hydro worker at 10:30 at night pulling wires through the bush. And the comments that I received and the people that are coming to my shop telling me what is going on with it. And I understand there was no hydro. It was disheartening, but it was unfair. Some of the people and what they thought may or may not have happened. It was very disheartening to hear that. It was so upsetting I couldn't sleep at night. If I could have brought hydro to all these people, I would have, but totally out of our hands. And I just wanted to comment on that. But I can't thank everyone involved for what they did and how they brought us back to where we are today. I was 10.5 days without hydro. That's fine. I'm by myself. It's okay. But my heart went out to the families that did not have that, had kids and did without. But you know what? I got to thank all the residents. They did endure. For the few that did complain, I can't help that. At County Council, big meeting yesterday. It's going to come back to this prospective council. I guess we'll have to make a decision as to whether or not we move to 16 members or whether we stay at 32. But that will be a decision of this council when it does come back. And I think the clerk will be in touch with the clerk down at the county to see when they bring that back. And I'm sorry for my passion. It was just upsetting to see what went through with this whole horrible storm, totally out of out of our hands, you know, in God's hands, nature, and we're still cleaning up to this day. And our staff are out there trying to get things done. And I just ask our residents to be patient, and we'll get it all done, and we'll be back to normal again. Thank you.
Yeah, great stuff. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Member Taylor?
Yeah, a couple areas, Quarter Mill, we're getting the property cleared up after a vicious winter storm there. The mill is in the process of hiring students to work during the summer, and they'll act as tour guides, interpreters, and actually doing yard work. We have grants for that. Our next big event is working in conjunction with the Lions Club with the annual duck race on May 31st. So big things there. Matchadash Hall, once again, we're cleaning up the area there too with trees and branches. The hall is very busy during the week with karate during the week, and the weekends are booked with baby showers, anniversaries, and celebrations of life. As I mentioned earlier, Severn Sound, part of Severn Sound is the Municipal Climate Leadership Committee, and there'll be funding opportunities being sent to the township to see what we can do as far as climate change and vulnerability and risk assessment. Friday, May the 9th is the awards celebration in Midland. Jeff Lehman is the guest speaker, going to speak that time. I won't be at that, but I think an invitation for everyone is going to come out, and you have to RSP by May 2nd. Our next quarterly meeting is actually tomorrow in Midland, so we'll give you an update on funding and stuff like that. So that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Member Taylor. Yeah, the last report, I just have one committee to report on. That's the Aurelia and Lake Country Physician Recruitment. We are actively working on the comprehensive business plan. The draft has been under discussion at our last meeting to manage the $500 grant from Aurelia to support family physician recruitment. Our goal is to get that to the Aurelia Council early in May, and then we can proceed. So I think we have a good plan coming. Right now is not the time to discuss the details, but I'm sure I'll have an update for you in a month, and you can ask questions then. We are working with a UK-based practitioner whose spouse is from Ontario for a fall relocation in the area. We have a possible candidate from Saskatchewan. Several graduating family medicine residents from Ontario have expressed interest in locums here, which is awesome. And we are talking to an American who has expressed a strong desire to leave the U.S. God, if we can't get them now, I don't know when we'll ever get them in from America. I know we're getting all kinds of professors applying for our universities now. Interesting times. In addition to current recruitment efforts, we now have initiatives targeting the Caribbean and the U.S. That's it. That's my report. Yes. Yeah.
I think what I'd like to do is I'd just like to add on to the ice storm. I think on behalf of council, I would like to thank the mayor for his diligence and his passion and the work that he did, and all our senior staff. I think we all agree that it was a tough one and we came through it. And the fact that a lot of residents, you know, they persevered and they were good about it. But I just also wanted to thank the mayor and the clerk and the OAC committee for all their hard work and all the rest of the staff. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it was great stuff. And I know in my area there's Silver Creek. We had volunteers checking in on the seniors there. I was so happy to hear that. They also offered to go into Marchmount. I don't know of anyone who's had a visit from them, but man, oh man, some really good stuff. And to the mayor, I agree. You cutting short your vacation, getting back here faster. Awesome. Thank you for that.
Just one more too. And I just have to tell you kind of a nice story. A lot of thank yous for things, but there were people out there giving other people suggestions like, how do you get hot water? It's been 6 days without a bath. And anybody who's never camped before, like they were saying, oh, you can get a little Coleman stove, or you can put this over this and you can do all this. And how do you get this food? And what can I do with this? And it was just like some type of, I think in the old days, it was called Helpful Hints from Heloise or something, but they had some really nice, positive neighbors checking on neighbors. People really rallied in their community. And I'd like to thank everybody for that too. Thanks.
Sir Minnings.
Hi, thank you. And since we're going the great stories route, I have a great one from Ward 4. Not only did we lose hydro, but we lost the West Shore plant for a few days, the water. So, and people weren't prepared because, as the mayor mentioned, it happened late at night. So we created our own water distribution center. I was able to get over 143 cases of water donated. The mayor brought over 13 cases of water from the township, which was appreciated, but all of that water did go. And I want to shout out to the businesses in Cumberland Beach, the PharmaSave, who acted as a water distribution center when they didn't have to, and Jay's Convenience Store, who ran a tab for people who were caught without groceries, and also to the business that lent the convenience store generator so that the milk and the eggs, et cetera, could be kept cold. It does take a community to rally, and I think maybe if we could capture some of all of those good news stories, that would be good to have just as to reflect back to people. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, yes.
Thank you to the chair. So thank you for that, member meetings, but the water portion was a joint effort between Madam CAO and myself and her husband Wayne, as I went out to look for water and there was no water. And when I called Lori, she said she would have Wayne run down to the Costco in Barrie, and we met halfway to get it to West Shore. So it wasn't me, it was a joint effort, and weather that was that night, the ice storm was coming, and thank God we made it back safely. And thank you, Madam CEO, for that.
Thank you all. Great. All right. If we can have our Chief Administrative Officer update.
Thank you. I should have gone first because staff. Sorry. We actually do have a storm wrap-up report that we're working on that will be on the next council agenda, I hope, which will give some council some idea of the breadth of operations that we undertook, because it was hard to keep everybody informed as we went. We were making some decisions on the fly, so that will be coming. A couple things to put in council's mind, though, before it comes, because we have an extra week this month and council's not for 2 weeks, which is lovely for staff. We're always excited by that extra week. But two things that, as much as we get great feedback on, we also get some negative feedback on. So just a heads up for you. One is we are doing our best to get major parks open for the May long weekend. So Washago, Coldwater, and Marchmount, but all parks will not be cleaned up before the long weekend. And I know we'll get some complaints about that. But it's a balance of cleaning up and doing our regular operations. And that's been a struggle all along, because the business of the municipality, like we're always this time of year working to open our parks for May 24th and our trails. But this time we have the added cleanup. So we're just not going to get everything done. And we have some contracted crews, but they are finishing the side of the road brush cleanup. And on the side of the road, we've really let the county take the lead on that, because it's their responsibility, but we've quietly had our own crews and our own contracted crews out digging some stuff out. The county is wrapping up May 19th, so we're going to start ramping down towards the end of this month. We're going to coincide with the county and do one last pass, because what we're finding is people are dragging out a lot of stuff. Like we've got rotted wood, we've got cedar trees that weren't damaged in the storm. So as much as people have been grateful, there's also been a bit of abuse, and we're seeing that's all our neighbors are finding the same thing. So we have to put it on an end sometime, and some people aren't going to like that, because we're not going to get everything. We're just not. And people, we do a pass, and then people drag more stuff out, and we don't have the resources to continue to do that forever. So at some point, people are going to have to take some personal responsibility and do that themselves. I wanted to pick up on a couple of other things that was mentioned. The deputy mayor was talking about, Crack was talking about the fairgrounds master plan. Really interesting. And I really got to get off Facebook, because it just upsets me. But there was probably 100 comments on how terrible we are that we're pushing the Fair Board out. Well, never, ever did we say that. That's not in the plans. We consulted with the Fair Board. They came to our meetings. It's just, it's unfortunate, right? It's just unfortunate that people say things and other people believe that it's true. So I just wanted to make it clear publicly that it's not true. And in fact, the Fair Board was extensively consulted, and whatever option council picks, the Fair Board will continue to run the fair and be welcome. So I don't know where that even came from, but somebody put it out there with authority, and then everybody jumped on about how terrible we are, which is very, very frustrating. When I retire, I'm going to make a fake account and start commenting on people when they say things that are not true. And the last point I wanted to pick up on is my work as president of the Ontario Municipal Administrators on the Strong Mayor piece. So we're doing a lot of quiet advocacy about it, but it's a piece that didn't come up in council's discussion. Is councils in general going forward are going to have a really hard time. Like, we already have a hard time recruiting qualified staff, but in the positions that are not protected. So what are protected are the clerk, the CBO, the fire chief, and the chief building official. So treasurer, sorry. So statutory positions. So we had a good chat about it at our management team this week, and it just happened that they were all sitting on one side of the table. On the other side of the table was the director of public works, the director of planning, the director of rec, and the CAO and the manager of HR. None of those positions are protected anymore. So if you're a clerk, do you want to be the next CAO? I'm not going to speak for our clerk, but in general, I think that's going to be problematic for people growing into the next step. And it's a very difficult place for staff to be, because we entered into our employment arrangements and then the rules of the game are changed. So I don't know where that's going to go. And it was a big discussion at my county CAO's meeting, and a lot of nervous people. And I think there'll be lots of chair shuffling, but it really, it detracts from wanting to go into the profession that you could be at the whims of a mayor. And I think everybody feels comfortable with the mayor that they have, but the fundamental election process is going to change. So just something to think about it. And I'll try and figure out how to work that into your letter that you're going to talk about. We are trying hard to grow the profession, and it's hard to recruit people from the private sector. And now it's going to be even harder. That's it for me today.
Thank you. And yeah, that's good information to add. I suspect the people that run for CAO are people that only plan to be there while that mayor is there, to be much like the leadership in the US right now. All right, we have no closed session, and I call for a motion to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned at 11:52 a.m.
All right, and thank you all. That was the most interesting day. Member Cox, and who seconded? Member Taylor. All in favor?
Have a good day, Dan.